joking.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm
peace,
joking. It's
peace
the
to
energy
the
here.
tree house. Tonight we have Chuck Morgan with us. Our other guests have not shown up yet, but that's okay because you know how we rock it over here. One monkey don't stop no show, and they'll be over sooner or later. And if they don't, oh well. We already have in the chat. We have Decline Management, Mujahid, Unseen, and me, and that's about it for now. But I'm quite sure there'll be a few more people popping up.
You can count on it.
Yes, the
All
time to
right.
set shots. Peace. As long as I keep my voice at a certain pitch right now, it'll stay fine.
That's why you got to get a mic.
Yes, yes.
You can remain calm and still yell at them.
hmm When I get angry, my throat closes up.
I hear you. All right.
No more of that.
Melanated agenda.
There go my boo. Why are you over there by yourself though? Why are you over there by yourself? Melanin's like, I'm on loan guard. No, this is Chuck. Who is up here with me, Remy? No, Remy's finna start live in a few minutes with Tar Noonan. They breaking down one part or another of the nuance sciences. I forget what it's supposed to be for the night. Okay, Chuck. We sitting up here in silence like we ain't live. I found this nifty letter yesterday. What is it? Why won't you go away? There. I ain't gonna say nifty. But like, okay, I know this isn't the most exemplary, well, the most vivid example of this trait of his, but York used to like draw little stuff in his letters, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's yeah, I used to get some of those kind of letters. He would draw these weird, you know, like dude, I mean some like almost childlike kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, did it have any purpose, or did he just doodling?
You know, I don't know if it had any real purpose. Some of it, yeah, I'm looking at it now. Some of it would be like in um his Nubic um uh portion might like the letterhead would be in Arabic on the actual letter
Mm,
or in the Riskian version of Nuwapic. And you know, he would get see here's what's important to note that in some of the early Patarat publications, actual facts, they were some of these letters, they would be sent to various peoples, like we talk about the the Celtic Wiccans and their religions of the blind faith and spookism is over. He keeps always saying that their time is over, this is over. I've been saying that since their time is over ever since 2000. Everything is over, but he's still stuck in prison. But they would take these letters and retype them and put them in a new publication, jazz up a cover, mix in with some of the previous information from other books, and sell it. And this would be these this new doctrine that they have, and that's like when he changed his name to Panabab Yanun. Still Yanun. There's the two letters Yanun, two
hmm
Arabic letters, the same thing, because that name Yanun goes all the way back to his days of pretending to be an imam in Islam. as Imam Isa, his um, his alter ego was the extraterrestrial being Yanun, who would periodically come into him while he's teaching classes and relay messages to the audience. Whoever's asking a question, they're then speaking to the angel Michael
Hmm.
or Melchizedek or Yanun or
So
whatever name he
basically,
wants to
he was
use.
channeling these people
Well, there was
allegedly.
no channeling. York would classify it as walk-ins. So he'd be talking, and the next thing you know, they just take over. You
But
know.
that's the terminology. That's what I'm saying.
Hmm.
For that, because it's a channel. It's a video that I posted a couple of weeks ago called channeling. Who goes there? And they talk about it, and it was like they just slip in.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
But
shots.
in York's case, of course, he's never given any verifiable background documentation to support any one of the fictional characters that he pretended to be or that he claimed that spoke through him. I give you an example. He in 1996, no, yes, 1996, on Tamaray, he had claimed that there were three new beings that spoke through him, and that was Elijah Muhammad, Clarence 13X, and Noble Drew Ali. And he said they told him that Isa set the record straight for us. And then that came with all the new books that was supposed to attack the Nation of Islam, 5%ers, and more science doctrine. Yep. So that was his claim. No proof. Because remember, now I'm excited. If you remember in back in the late 80s, early 90s, he was claiming to have all of these different beings that were speaking through him. And one of them was Jesus of 2,000 years ago. Jesus Christ was speaking through Dr. York at the time, Imam Isa.
In other words,
Yeah, but wait a minute. But at the same
mhm.
time, he said later on that Jesus of 2,000 years ago never existed.
So
And
how
then
is
he
he
switched
channeling?
it up and then said that he's Israel, that he did exist 2,000 years ago. So let me give you an example. Let me see here. Um, all right. So outside of the fact that he contradicted himself multiple times, over time, I'm just gonna try to find where he was talking about these beings or entities that were speaking through him. Um, oh, here they are. I mean, this is what book is this from? This is from The Man of Miracles in This Day and Time, page 24 from 1988. So York says this quote, these personalities accompany other beings that speak to me and through me. I named 7 people other than myself, which would be 8 characters or personalities. Each one of them represents a certain amount of information that must be conveyed in these last days and times. Some of them represent spirituality. Some of them are healers, historians, great men, and some of them have accompanied great men. For instance, Sheikh Al Qut, some old man named the Qut, the Axis. He was the initiate student of Idris, who is known in the Bible as Enoch. His life was dedicated, and he explains and tells you the stories of Idris, how he lived, and what he represented, which is something needed for the people in these days and times. Check out Kidder, the green one. He is not a human being. Let me repeat. Check Kidder. He is not a human being. He has no nationality, for he is an angelic being. His name is Michael or Mikhael. When in the heavens, he is referred to as El Khidr because Khidr means green light, the essence of him. He taught all the prophets. He also taught all the sages and learned men. He has always been there, for he is the light of the world. He is also known as Melchizedek, Isa el Messiah. He is referred to as Yeshua, also known as Jesus the Messiah from 2,000 years ago. He was merely a student of a very great learned men, which I have indicated in many of my books. Yanun. Yanun is from another galaxy. He is a visitor. As you know, we have 19 galaxies, something he's never proven. We have 19 galaxies. He is from the eighth galaxy outside of this one. They are 100,000 years more advanced than this planet. Since they have passed through this stage, he comes here to give us guidance. Zoser, also known as Abdul Qudus, or the great Egyptian healer who built the pyramids of Saqqara and was the great healer and was thought by many to be a form of God. All of these men were not the normal humans. Isa al Hadi al Mahdi, which is me, the person being utilized. Why? I don't know why. I'm the one being utilized. Only Allah, the supreme creator of all things, knows. Malachi York, Man of Miracles, in this day and time, page 24, 1988. I think from reading and listening to that is pretty self explanatory. Now, what's interesting is that York mentions one of these personalities as being Isa al Masih, who he says was Jesus of 2,000 years ago. Yet, he also says there is no historical fact anywhere that there was a man named Jesus 2,000 years ago. There is no facts. So when you align yourself with fiction, you can't claim your sovereignty. That's Malachi York, End of Racism Audio. And then he also says in a book called Is Jesus God, page 2, there has been no real evidence to support that a Jesus, as taught to be Christ, and all of his stories were ever been proven to exist. And then shortly before his arrest, he writes in the book, Is It Black Man's Christianity or White Man's Christianity? Page 359. What better way is to eliminate Hamashiach al-Messi, the Messiah, than to make one thing that he does not exist? Well, he does. Joshua, Asa, Haru, Tammuz, Jesus of 2,000 years ago is real. He's real. So then that's the question. Why would anyone accept what this nut has to say as being factual when he cannot hold a position where he can be challenged, where he holds and keeps that position? Because he switches up. And he even says it, you know me, I'll switch up to you in a minute. This is the same man that said, I'm innocent. Then he said he's guilty. Then he said he's innocent. How can you trust
Mhm.
someone like that? I
You
don't get
can.
it. But I yield.
Does anybody in the chat have any questions? We have a lull right now. The person that wanted me to set this up has not showed up yet. Y'all know how it go after a certain period of time, the title will change and he will have forfeited his chance. And after that, please quit trolling me. It's not a teaching, Divanya. He's explaining what York where York was wrong and how.
What was the question?
No, she said she can't take this type of she can't do this teaching. Like this
Teaching.
ain't we ain't she he ain't trying to no, he ain't trying to spread Yorkism.
Oh, so you think I'm trying to proselytize? No. What I'm doing is showing the watchers, the viewers, just some
Oh,
of some of the teachings of York.
Travis, man, you had me confused for a minute. It's Uma or your autocorrect got you real good. But he said, "Can we be real for a moment? The only reason old boy talking Dr. York, cause Uma the only woman to give him attention, so he
Oh
want to
no.
keep bringing her back." Okay, Salem Morgan says, "How old was Dr. York when he wrote those books?"
How
Right.
old was he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was in his 40s at that time. He was in his 40s. Yeah, it's
I can't
some
watch
very
that a bit tired. If you want to give us a summary, I would greatly appreciate it.
yeah. He's in his 40s. Uh, Yep.
Okay, so
And
York was arrested twice before he ever started the first place,
wait a
right?
minute. Say it again.
He was arrested once or twice for sexual improprieties with a minor before he ever started a religion, the first school of thought or whatever.
Well, let me go to the pre-sentencing investigative report that was given to um the judge to determine the the sentencing. So let
Mhm.
me pull this up for the audience. I'm gonna share the screen.
Okay.
One moment.
Take your time. Take your time.
Okay.
Okay,
Copy
there it
that.
is. Yeah, it's up.
All right. So this is the defendant's criminal history. Well, the first thing I want to do is let me just for this is for the um for those who need to see it. Oh well, we'll come back to it. All right. Okay. So where are we? We're going to pull up the defendant's criminal history. So right here. All right. So what we have here is Dwight D. York, who is Malachi. Uh, total level of conviction, say offense, chapter 4 enhanced. All right, right here. So the defendant's criminal history, juvenile adjudications. So adult criminal convictions, a date of arrest 1/7/1964, age 18. Charge unlawful entry, King's Court, criminal court, right here. Date sentencing opposed 1964, January 28th, 30 days in jail. All right. Um, the defendant advised that he was represented by counsel. The circumstances of the offense were not available. The defendant was originally charged with burglary and was allowed to enter a plea of guilty to a lesser offense of unlawful entry. June 25th, 1964, the day before his birthday. Rape, third degree, Kings County Criminal Court. He was convicted, sentenced, suspended, and placed on probation 7/10/1964. The defendant reported that he was represented by counsel. The circumstances of the offense could not be obtained. However, it is noted by the that the defendant related to his sister, Dale Brown, which is Dale York, Wakia, confirmed that the defendant was arrested and charged for having sexual contact with his minor girlfriend, who was reportedly approximately 16 years of age. Um, in 7/13/64, assault, third degree. He was sentenced to 3 months in jail. 7/13/1964. The defendant reported that he had been represented by counsel. The circumstances of the offense could not be obtained from the Kings County Criminal Court. However, the defendant related that the charges resulted from an altercation with several individuals. That was when he was a gang member in Brooklyn. I forget the name of the group. I forget this clique he was a part of. Felony assault, possession of dangerous weapons, zip gun. He's mentioned that. He didn't even really get into the other details about it, but he did mention this as well. The defendant reported that he was represented by counsel. The circumstances of the offense could not be obtained. Blah blah blah. However, the defendant related that the charges were the result of his attempted retaliation in reference to the prior assault charge occurring July 13th. Yeah. So, here's another one. In 1987, possession of false identification with the intent to defraud the United States Court, District Court, Southern Jurisdiction, or Southern District, sorry. of New York. In 1988, he had to spend 16 consecutive weekends in jail, $10,000 fine, and $25 special assessment. The defendant. Now listen to this. This is interesting because the name of this individual, Bruce LaRoche, is going to come up because he was going to testify against York, and this was York's right hand man and the guy that York molested most of his children, boys and girls. The defendant was represented by counsel. The court documents reflect that on October 7, 1987, the defendant submitted a passport application alleging his name and identity as Asa Al Hadi Al Mahdi. Bruce LaRoche appeared with the defendant and signed an affidavit identifying the defendant as Al Hadi Al Mahdi. The birth certificate was submitted from the
Mm-hmm.
state of Pennsylvania, also identifying York as Al Hadi Al Mahdi. The birth certificate was found to have been issued to a white male identified as William Martin Tripus on October 8, 1987. The defendant and LaRoche returned to the passport office. York was questioned by a U.S. Customs agent. Upon being read his Miranda rights, York bolted out of the office and attempted to flee. LaRoche attempted to obstruct the defendant's arrest and wrestled with agents. York was apprehended and was found to have in his possession $4,021 and a New York State driver's license and credit cards in the name of Asa Muhammad. He also possessed a U.S. passport in the name of Asa ibn Abdullah Abu Bakr Muhammad with an expiration date of March 30, 1993. The defendant completed the service of his sentence on September 30, 1988, and paid a fine. He was released and reside at 716 Bushwick Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. York provided a statement to the Southern District of New York relating that he falsely submitted the application in an attempt to change his identity. York stated that he did so in an effort to avoid the long process of changing his name. That's important because it was during this time that Bilal Phillips released the book, The Ansar Cult, and identified York as not being Sudanese, nor of his name being Al Mahdi, but that he was Dwight York. And by doing this, he wanted to have the false documentation to be able to post in his publication that here's his driver's license with his name, Asa Al Hadi Al Mahdi, meaning that I am of the Mahdi family. But he got stopped in trying before he can get that fully executed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that this is just a brief history of the defendant's criminal history. Defendant
Oh,
is named in 197 counts of the 208 count indictment charging aggravated child molestation, sexual exploitation of children, and influencing witnesses. On January 24, 2003, the defendant entered a guilty plea to a total of 77 counts of the indictment, which named a total of 13 juvenile victims. The Putnam County District Attorney's Office requested sentencing after the federal sentencing and recommends a sentence of 14 years to serve with 36 years of probation for a total sentence of 50 years. The state recommended that the Putnam County Superior Court sentence run concurrent to the federal sentence. The district attorney provided reasoning that the federal sentence would equate to 12.75 years and the state sentence would result in a sentence of 12.3 years. Considering okay, I have to go now. Considering credit for good time, the state
true peace, star no name.
hold on, sweetheart. I'll be there shortly. Well,
Okay,
as you
you
can read on, so the state sentence is to include $15,000
have
fine and up to 150,000
okay.
restitution. to be named to the victims, blah, 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 blah. So
Mm,
that could
mm.
be found in the pre-sentencing investigative report. I have both 1 and 2 on my Facebook page, the Nuwapian discussion group. I'm gonna pause this right now because I got to make
Mhm.
a quick run, and I'm gonna come back. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Yoruba TV just hit me back up, and I sent them the link, so they should be here shortly. Hopefully not before you get back, but if so, we'll just keep it rolling like we usually do. Two Peace, Tarnoon, and you Tarnoon and over there with Ramil right now. The topic is um ain't no problem, Travis. We don't get real crunk to the second half. The real agenda part break Tar Noonan breaks down the real agenda part one. Okay, we gonna do a weekend real soon. We gonna do a Zoom meeting so I can answer all y'all questions and get everything changed. But that special character be messing it up because it don't want to tag you, and that's why can't nobody find your channel like that. For tonight, I have pegged Craig the heck? Chuck's Craig Craig must be thinking about me. Craig, you must be at your microwave. But no, I have tagged Chuck's website and his YouTube page at the top of the chat. So periodically go ahead and rotate that through my lovely, lovely mod assistant. Still no update on the Miami Dade website on Eugene. Oh, Craig, thank you by me. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Chuck is gone for a few minutes. We cool, we cool, we cool. Other guys coming. Oh, and once again, chat, give a thanks to our lovely giveaway sponsor, Levon, who sent us a whole big old box of stuff for future giveaway. I was like, I did not know you was gonna send this much, bruh. But it looked good. It looks very, very nice. I got my eye on one of those sweaters. You might be coming with me, Playboy. And our lovely giveaway winner from our last giveaway star, she already he had to go pick up his wife. He'll be right back. So this is like an intermission, a brief intermission, but an intermission nonetheless. I feel like playing the drag music and dragging myself right now. No, no. Oh, being awkward on my own show. Shame, shame. Oh yeah, and I'm finna send it to your email. If anybody's worried about Uda, he's off in the studio. He in the studio. He in the studio. He in the studio. He should be here in a minute. Don't laugh at me, Travis. I have awkward moments too. Divine is coming to hold my hand. Oh my goodness, darling, darling, darling. Let me tell you. So I had melanated. So somebody's here. It's Devonia, darling. Yeah, Travis, true, true. Hello, my love.
Oh my gosh, this thing is working.
Yes.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's a little choppy, but yes. If you're using some type of Bluetooth, that might be what it is.
Um, I don't have my iPad sync, so I don't know what's going on, but everything is synced with my email. The
Mhm.
email you sent me showed up on my phone, but it's not showing up on my iPad. Isn't that weird?
Well, pull the screen down and it'll refresh it. It should pop back up. But
Yeah.
sometimes they won't hit all the devices at the same time. Your phone's usually the fastest one to get it.
I'm still choppy though, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit choppy.
Mm, wait a minute. Anyway, talk to me while I'm.
No, I was wondering if you had any questions for Chuck, but I just wanted you to come hold my hand because I'm up here by myself. Chuck left and he coming, and that's Michael. Would you happen to? Oh, hey, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing tonight?
Good, good, good.
Good.
Just checking in, saying what's going on.
Yeah, Chuck just left to go pick up his wife, and he'll be back in a minute. Yoruba just got the link, so he should be dropping down. And I've just been sitting up here doing a very, very, very bad intermission show for some strange reason tonight. I
Okay.
wasn't expecting my voice to be back this much,
Right.
but I've been nursing it all day. So apparently something worked. And now I'm like, because I didn't plan anything. I planned to let y'all run the show.
I got you. Yeah, so I just came in, so I'm not sure what you guys were talking about.
Chuck, before Chuck left, he went over because I had asked him about York's arrest prior to him starting anything, and he had showed us the documents for that. And then he got the call and he had to go pick her up. So that was about 2-3 minutes ago. So he should be back in a few.
Okay. What was he discussing?
The charges prior to him starting the first Answer Allah community. The
Oh,
two
okay. Yeah. Well, I think, just in my opinion, what needs to be focused on is, the issues at hand. All that stuff, I get it. It's history, this and that. But I think what's going on here is, regardless if you're pro York supporter or you're a anti York, you think he's guilty and he did it. The bottom line is this: whether you agree with the justice system, United States government, or not, and we know there's corruption, they have a history of it. But the bottom line is this: that's what it needs to be focused on, as far as those who support his innocence. So those pieces of information and charges need to be taken apart. It's not really on the other aspect of so-called victims, because they'll keep saying, why aren't any victims coming forward? Well, it just goes to show that nobody really researches like they claim they do,
Yeah.
or nobody knows about the case like they claim they know about the case, because you can use a simple piece of information that anybody can get access to, which is the pre-sentence and investigation report. Because I'm hearing people say things like, oh, he was only charged with RICO charges and cash structuring and transporting minors across state lines. That's not true. All you got to do is go into the 77 indictment count, and it has the names of those that went to court and testified. The names are right there. Those names can be brought up anytime anybody wants to bring them up. Why those individuals don't come forward and speak out? The question really is, what would be the point of them coming to speak out? For justice? They already got justice. There's no need. Some of them don't, as I said before, some of them don't really feel the need to bring all this up and rehash it. So the onus ain't on the onus isn't on the victims. The onus is on the people that's saying he's innocent to use the information there that he's being charged with, and that's not happening. It's just people making stupid statements. And all you have to do is go through the charges line by line and then prove and come with anything you feel is in opposition to it. That's it. It's that simple. So we get caught up sometimes, the back and forth, the personal opinions. So what people have to learn to do to have intelligent conversations about this, whether you're a pro-York supporter or against York, you have to put your personal emotions aside. And you have to actually talk about what's in front of you, and none of that's going on. Because if it's personal, and as I've said before, my stance is clear. I believe the man is guilty, but I can have an intelligent conversation without letting my personal emotions get involved, unless somebody gets ignorant. That's different. Sometimes people will take it to that ignorant level. But if there's no need to go there, there's no need to go there. Let's just discuss what's in front of us. Okay, so we can use a simple piece of information, because people say they're coming up with all these different theories in terms. Let's look at the indictment. Let's look at how he was sentenced and structured, how they came up with 135 years and what's contained. And also keep in mind who gave them majority of the information for that pre-sentence and investigation report, which was his so-called sister, Dale York, who she, by the way, says in the pre-sentence and investigation report that his name is Dwight York. Okay, and the Wapians don't address that. Okay.
I just so happen to have the pre-sentence investigation report.
Okay, now when you see the counts in there, you see the names.
I'm gonna pull it up.
When you look at all the counts, it tells you when the molestation took place, where, if it was Sullivan County, New York, if it was Putnam County, if it was in Brooklyn. It tells you how long it went on with the victims, when it started, and how long it ran up to, etc. So why are people acting like there are no molestation charges on file? And all they have to do, if that's fake, because then there's going to be the conspiracy theorists, and anybody can obtain a copy of this from the court in Macon, Georgia, in Bibb County. It's real easy to obtain. It's not like it's something secretive. But why are people acting like there's nothing on record? I see it on the screen now. Right. Why are people acting like there's nothing on record with people, with actual victims that testified of being molested? It's not only just on record, it's clear for how long it took place, when it started, and how long it lasted. Just address that. And then if you bring some evidence, look, I can be a mature adult. If you bring some evidence that shows otherwise, then hey, I'll tip my cap to you. But it's right there. Why are people acting like that does not exist? Why are people
Hey,
acting like it's not there?
okay, Mike.
Yeah, you back?
Oh, you put up. Yeah, I was reading from the pre-sentencing investigative report.
Okay.
We both have it up at the same time, but you
Yeah.
go ahead with it. I'm getting organized here.
See, we could use this as a piece of information, and keep in mind who supplied them with a majority of this information. We got to keep that in mind. That's Dale York, aka Wakia. She gave them majority of this information. So if anybody has any questions to any of the information in here about his childhood, his young adult life, and all of these other things that are in there, you might want to go speak to her. Maybe she can tell you why she told them those things. But see, people want to get mad at us when we're bringing this stuff up. So all that has to simply do is be addressed. If you look at the sentencing guidelines, because again, there's people saying he was not charged at all on record anywhere with molestation. Show me that. It's not what it says here. All you got to do is look at it.
I heard somebody try to join, but I don't see nothing. Oh, there you go. Okay, so this is Yoruba TV, but he's got a dafa up. So Tahaka. Peace, Tahaka. You prefer Tahaka? If you're talking, your mic's muted. We can't hear you.
Okay. All right, I had to step away. Where you at, Mike?
I'm right here.
Okay. Okay. Oh, there. Oh, okay. There's the other
Yeah,
guy.
he just popped up.
All right.
If
Good
your-
enough.
I think your mic's muted. Can you? Or you're in a bad signal because your signal keeps going bad. So you might need to go to a better signal area.
Okay. So
Is that your TV mic?
Yeah, hold on. Let me mute myself. I'm sorry. I got my kids and stuff here. I'll keep it muted when I'm not talking.
No, I can cut your volume down some, but yeah.
Yeah, just do that because if let me know if it's a problem. I'll just mute myself when I'm not talking. All right.
Nah, it's just a little background noise.
I apologize.
I can put your mic down a little bit so that way it's not as noticeable.
All right, appreciate it. I'm trying to do both here.
No problem. Adapa, we still can't hear you. So let's continue until he get his mic situation straightened out.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to continue, Chuck, because I kind of came in, and I was just adding. I was just talking with the sister, just kind of adding on.
well, I had finished. We were just because I was responding to a question that someone was asking about his early criminal history. So I went to the pre-sentencing investigative report and pulled out some of his early arrests. So that's where I ended off, and I had to make a run.
Right, and then what I was adding to that was people have to keep in mind the individual that was responsible for giving a majority of that information is his so-called sister, Dale York, aka Wakia. So if anybody has a gripe with anything in there that's inaccurate, all you got to do is read it. It clearly states that, then somebody needs to take a beef up with her. She even goes to the point of saying in there, he was known by the name Dwight. He used that name. All of those things, to me personally, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really care about any of that shit.
Right.
To be honest with you, I'm going to be honest because it's irrelevant. We need to stay focused on what's going on now, what's going on in the moment. Right. To me, that's more important. I mean, yeah, that's there. It's documented information. Take it for what it is. But I think the focus needs to be on the case, victims, and people's position. And that's it, regardless. And again, as I was saying, we can have an intelligent conversation where if you're pro York or against York. But let's stick to this is a simple piece of information that can be used. So for people that say he's innocent, use this as your basis. For those who say he did not get charged with molestation, that's not true. It's right there, right in front of you. Okay, it wasn't just RICO structuring cash and transporting minors across state lines. In the 77 count indictment, it makes it clear who the victims were. Their names are right there, how long the molestation started from Sullivan County, New York, Brooklyn, all the way to Eatonton, Georgia. It makes this crystal clear. Why are we acting like this stuff is not here? I mean, if people still doubt, you can go to the part where the names are there. That's the other thing. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Mike. Go ahead.
Okay. If people doubt, go look at the names. And then again, people will say, well, if there was any victims, how can they not? This is where I left off, Chuck, before when you came back in. People will keep making this ridiculous argument. If they're all victims, how can they not coming forth and speaking? What's the point of them coming forth and speaking, number one? Number two, I can't speak for them. Some I do know don't want to be bothered with the trauma of bringing it back up again. There's just no need, because the only way a victim in this sense would have to come forward to speak was if justice hadn't been served yet. Then they might be forced, if they had to come forward, to get justice on the individual. So let's just be clear. Why would those, what would be the point? Just to suit other people? So the other side, yeah, the onus is on the people who say he's innocent to challenge this right here. If this is not correct, regardless of your position, you can't just make blanket statements like, oh, for years, the teenage boys were molesting all the children in the community. And from statements I've heard recently, they're saying this was going on from Ansarula community days all the way up to Eatonton, Georgia, outside of the community areas around it. So when we say, well, name these teenage boys, give me some names. And you can't do it, because their biggest beef with us is to go, why is it always people coming forward who never saw anything? All they're saying is what they heard. Well, you guys are doing the same thing.
What about the people who did come forward from what they, not only what they saw, but their participation in the sex act?
Well, no,
listen,
don't bring
you
it
remember
off
the shows we did, we brought on.
Yeah.
We brought on.
Well, how come nobody's talking about Issa, Kathy Johnson's son? How come that's died out? That got real quiet quick, huh? How come nobody brings that up anymore? I wonder why.
Who is Issa?
That's Kathy Johnson's son. That's a biological son that York had with Kathy Johnson. Which
Issa. Yeah, I had a brain fart.
Right. And they'll tell you her book is lies, the book that she wrote. And the other thing, let me clarify. People, please do your research. Stop saying the man took a plea to get the women and children out of jail. All you got to do is pull the records up.
That was
the women were out of jail before York took the so-called plea. Go look it up. If I'm wrong, put it on the screen and show me otherwise. This is, again, people making statements and not understanding what they're saying or what they're talking about. If you say that the woman was still incarcerated while he took the plea, please, all you got to do is pull the records up like we could and throw them right on the screen and you'll see it. And stop. The reason why York took the plea, look, this is the reality. If somebody came to you and gave you a sweet deal, 15 years, you'd probably have to do 8 years with good behavior, you'd be out. He'd have been out already. But when the judge realized that was too soft, that's why he pulled it back and said, no way. And then this whole charade started with being a Native American and I was under duress when I took the plea. That was pure fear you saw in that video. Okay.
But that's what they're pushing. They've been pushing, and they're pushing it to a new audience who are not up on the
reality. It's a new audience, but it's the same stuff. It's nothing different.
Stuff.
It's nothing different.
I'm going to yield, and I'm going to see what the opposition has to present.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is something wrong with your mic? You can type in the chat.
Yeah, and just something I see, I just want to comment to whoever comes in, and then, I'll be silent. Gary Hawkins makes a good point. People that don't study the psychological aspect of abuse victims, it's not an easy thing to spit and talk about this. It's not an easy thing. People ain't factoring that stuff in. They act like we're talking about an order that was messed up at a restaurant. You understand what I'm saying? And that's not the case here. Some people, everybody can take trauma differently. Not everybody's built the same. Some people could take a lot of it, and it's easy for them to maybe move on and deal with things. But there's some people that probably will never be able to move on. They'll be scarred for life. Nobody factors that in. We're just looking at our personal emotions on things, okay? You have to factor that in. And outside of York and the case, if anybody knows or studied anything about that psychologically, you know what an impact and what trauma that can leave on an individual, especially when it happened at a very young age. So we don't talk about any of this stuff because we're more worried about personal agendas. Like I say, I'm past the point of all the personal agendas. Like I say, I try to keep it as professional as I can unless somebody gets ignorant. That's a different story. But the bottom line is we need to just focus on the base issues here, the charges, how they were structured. And if they're wrong, it's on the onus of the opposition to prove that wrong. You understand?
He's having issues. He says
And
he's having issues with his mic, so he's going to reconnect with his mobile.
okay. And also, I want to add that the case is over. The trial is over. All they're doing right now is Monday morning quarterbacking years after the fact. So there's nothing that what I'm going to say, what anyone else is going to say, that's going to change the reality of where York is currently and the results of what took place in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about public image correction. They're trying to alter the reality of what stands now is that this man has been placed in custody and has been convicted on numerous counts of molesting children within his congregation. That reality is the reality. So anyone coming after that, they're going to constantly have to try to change that, sidestep it, make false equivalences, anything other than what the facts state. No matter what York says, he can say now, he can say tomorrow, I did it. I'll tell you why I did it, and you go with it from there. If he did it, then if he said it, it wouldn't matter because these people will not accept the reality of what he did, even if he says it. So I don't want anyone to confuse or be
Right.
in a state of delusion to think that the average Nawapian is going to accept the fact of the evidence. So it was never about trying to reach them because they're gone. They went over the edge a long time ago. This is just going over some of the things that some people may not be familiar with, and we're just sharing it here. But it's not an issue of trying to convince any of them because
Exactly.
cognitive dissonance is a serious illness, and it is in a massive state within that organization.
And let me throw one thing in there. Because I've also been seeing some recent audios of calls going back to 13 and 14 that they're playing of York. This is not really making them look good. And I'm going to tell you why. Because on these audios, York is claiming to have all this paperwork of being this and being that and paperwork to get repatriated and paperwork to get released and transferred and all this and that. But we're not looking at just basic common sense. I'm seeing videos from 2013 and 14. The last time I checked is 2021. So why would putting the audio up of claiming to have all these documents that are legit
You have
that
to
can
allow
get
your mic, Yoruba.
why would putting those documents out and audios from back then, it's just making the situation look worse. It's confirming how illegitimate that stuff is. And keep this in mind. A lot of that paperwork you hear York talking about on those phone calls, these are people like Deuceway York. These are these hustlers and con people that got working on the case, coming and bringing and getting him these fake documents that they're claiming. First of all, the last that I heard, let me address this. That a few months ago, he's holding in his hand a paper with the seal on it, stating that Ghana's coming for him to repatriate him. Okay, and that, from what I heard, if I'm wrong, somebody correct me. That was about several months ago, from what I heard. First of all, regardless or not, then I didn't hear anything about a judge having a hearing and ruling on that as being official. What I did hear, because he's a diplomat,
Right.
he doesn't have to have no hearing. That's not true. If you understand how prison treaties, transfers, repatriation works, that's not true. Don't matter. So I'm saying that to say whoever's feeding him that stuff that he's talking about, and look, you got to also put yourself in the situation of that man. You're going to believe anything somebody comes and tells you because that's how desperate and where the situation's at. So anything that sounds like a gleam of hope, of course you're going to run with it. And I can understand that. That totally makes sense to me. But what I'm saying is if you've had this so-called document in your possession that's supposed to get you out of there, and now several months have gone by, I got news for you. Guess what? I don't think that's going to happen. Okay.
Not happening.
It just doesn't work like that. That's not how the legal system works. That's not how a repatriation process works. I know because I was working on it. Okay. So anybody that's going to make claims about that, you'd have to sit and break down to me if what I'm saying is wrong. Explain to me exactly the process of a repatriation. And don't say you don't know, because if you don't know, then stop speaking on it. Get somebody that does, and we can have an intelligent dialogue. That's it. So for you to say that that's not true, you have to explain to me and also talk to me, because we also tried things with the International Criminal Court of Justice, the ICC. We tried that. And I could tell you stories about that. But that's a whole nother avenue. I won't open that up until if something else comes up in regards to that. Okay. There's a process to all this. But what happens is when something doesn't pan out, they'll just go jump to something else. And then they can't explain that, and they'll just go pan. I mean, just think how ridiculous this story is. I mean, first, you're born in Sudan. You're not born in Boston. Then, no, that's not really what happened. You were born in, and all of a sudden it shifts to Ghana with this really crazy story that makes no sense, and the timelines don't match up, and there's more holes in it than Swiss cheese, as I said before. Prove me wrong. That's legal strategy. I know, because a lot of this stuff was formulated. That whole Ghana thing, let me make that clear. That's Damon Pryor. You can thank him for all that, a.k.a. Doo York, Deuce York, whatever he calls himself now. I have no idea. I know him by Damon Pryor, okay? He is the one that is doing all that scamming nonsense that he's been doing for years, and it started back in 2009, okay? Go look at the Ghana birth certificate from 2009, and you can see how fake that thing is.
I'll pull it up.
Pull it up, put it on screen. Matter of fact, anybody can call that number on there and verify if there's anybody on birth record there by that name. They're going to tell you no. And then even when you bring this up to some Nuwaubians, they'll have some crazy ass answer for it. All to shut us up. Get somebody from Ghana that you can validate that they accept him as what you're claiming to be. Then I'll keep quiet, and I'll even apologize. Okay? I'll even apologize. All I'm saying is get somebody to verify that document that it's official. I know you can't, because it's not. Because I was there when all that scamming was going on and what they were trying to do. And as I said previously, I spoke out against it. I was against that stuff because I felt that stuff could hurt at the time when I was supporting. I felt that stuff could be more damaging than helpful, but nobody wanted to listen. And as I said before, I was even what we call whiteballed. There's a term we used to use in the community and in the tabernacle and the whole organization. When you did something that went against the administration's protocol, you were whiteballed. When I was at that time running my community / AEO temple down in South Florida, I had brothers that didn't even want to affiliate or associate with me because I went against the administration, spoke against Deuce York, and didn't get any support. So I'm making it clear, putting it on the record. I was speaking out or get out against it back then in 2009. I want to make that clear. Go ahead. I see you got it up on the screen. Chuck, do you hear me?
Okay, I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah.
So what we have here,
yeah.
So what we have here is David Piper York. This is Malachi York's father. All right. This was supplied to me, of course, by way of the family, and it's pretty clear. His brother Dennis Craig York, and on and on. But what you were mentioning is the fake birth certificate that David Pryor put together. So here we have, if you can see it, it's about the best I could do with it. It says here, oh boy. Okay, so David York said occupation timber merchant. All right, nationality Ghana, religion Christian, maiden name Mary Abba Okrain, nationality Ghana. Where were born June 26, 1945. Government Hospital, Takoradi, Takoradi. That's in Ghana. All right. So Mary Abba Akran mother. This is supposed to be York's Ghanaian
But
birth
look at the
certificate.
date of, show the date of registration.
Where's that at?
You'll see it. June 17th, 2008. That's important, but go ahead.
Where's that at? You see it on it?
You see it right there? Date of registration,
Oh, yeah, right, June 8th. Yeah.
June 17th, 2008. Go ahead.
Okay. And registry of birth, the Deborah Ghana, do hereby, the signature handwritten is Stephen, I can't remember to put that name together, Liberation Road, Takoradi, given under my hand the seal, Akron, Ghana, 18 June. Oh, saying, okay. So here's the individual that is responsible for that stuff. He
Now,
even
all
put
you,
one together for himself.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's what you do. That's what you do. You just,
So
all you
not
gotta do is,
only do you have the fake birth certificate for York here, whoever he paid to
yeah,
put it together,
yeah.
this guy, Damon Pryor, who Deuce for York as they call him, Dusa Basa York, male, name Malachi. This is supposed to be his father, Malachi York, occupation pastor, nationality Ghana, religion Christian. Look at this. Look at this madness.
And then, by the way, then you start selling fake tribal IDs and take everybody's money and disappear.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And what Mike was making mention of earlier was into something that I still thought was still funny is this passport. This is supposed to be York's Liberian passport.
With a jail mugshot, by the way. He's a business. Look at where it says business executive. Come on, man.
I mean, how can you take this cult serious? I mean, we got to come here, waste time, and present points that have been long pointed out and debunked years ago, and then they pop up from under the trash can, trying to start a new narrative and spread this nonsense to people who were not aware of it in the past. Oh, and earlier when we were talking about that phony birth certificate that he was arrested for, York's attorney then was Jonathan Marks. Here is the judgment and the probation order for him. Now, I want you to focus on something here as before we go down. Notice something here. Now, this is United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. Who is the name that we have here? I didn't even have to do this because it's stupid.
That's been there
But
for years.
Dwight York.
So how did that get on? You know what the answer to that is, right? That's why that was a misnomer back then, and it carried. This is what the narrative we were pushing back then. That was the misnomer that he accidentally was assigned to then, and that's why it's carrying over to current. So that misnomer you see, it's just ridiculous. Can you imagine taking these documents to the ICCJ? Can you imagine the International Criminal Court of Justice? Can you imagine what a judge? And all you got to do is pull up, you can find online another individual, the structure of a Liberian diplomatic passport. Pull that up and compare the two. And come on, man. I mean, this is just common sense stuff. I mean, we're sitting here going back and forth. Think about this. Nobody, you got members who've been in this organization for years and they don't know anything else. Mm-hmm. What would happen if they really accepted that this really all falls apart? It's done. Half of them wouldn't even know where to go and what to do next. So they have to hang on to this. Where do you go from here? Think about it. You invested your whole life in it. At this point, it's ride or die, right? Yeah. Where do you go from here?
I mean, look at Kedar, Amun, Nuwabian assassin. I mean, I like the guy, but he's institutionalized in this stuff. He can't go anywhere. What life would he have outside of the cult? He has to go in and push this nonsense. He's not going to accept. He won't even look at a document like this. Okay, so the defendant has been convicted as charged of the offense unlawfully, willfully, and knowingly did possess an identification document other than one issued lawfully for the use of the processor the false identification document with the intent that such document be used to defraud the United States to wit violation of Title 18 United States Code on.
So this is
So
the
right here, so
passport. Just be clear. Let them know this is the passport fraud. Just so
yes,
they
this is
understand.
the this is the passport that we were reading earlier,
Volume. You need to click on the mic and see and do what it tells you to do. You have to enable your microphone.
and that's the passport right there. That's what he got with the fake. This is the fake passport that he had. So this just goes to show you that they will falsify documents in order to keep this guy going. Case in point, this thing.
That's just ridiculous. How you can
Okay,
even present that with a straight face and say that's legit
but that's what
if you know about international law and how things work. That's just comical, straight comical.
exactly. So let me pause for a moment. So it's on whoever's going to come up next.
Yoruba Nation doesn't have any audio. Hey,
Well, how
Lana,
convenient.
does anybody have any questions in the chat?
Yeah,
So
because
he wants to just sit there.
I just don't
wants to
feel like
sit there,
rehashing the same crap over and over. To be honest,
be a fly on the wall. Okay. Well, look, I'll just keep on moving. But yeah, since he doesn't have anything to present, is there something in the chat?
Now's the time. Ask your questions. Yoruba's a dud. Let me change the title.
yeah, because like, again, it's just pointless to keep rehashing the same old things over and over. That's what I'm saying, and that's basically all we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, these guys have called me out over and oh, Chuck, Chuck, why would I join this discussion just to sit here, you clown? Dude, y'all call me out. The fuck? Was a universal Yoruba nation. It's after 2 a.m. It was then stupid. Then what you even agree to come on here for? You dummy.
You want to ask
That's
for
an
it?
excuse. That's an excuse, you stupid idiot. If you wasn't ready to build, why did you take the time to even come on here and say, "Oh, I can't get my mic together. Let me go and see if I can get my phone." Now you got a new excuse to say, "Well, it's 2 a.m. I can't."
He told me it was 3. Remember?
See,
Yeah, this
these
is
mamas are just too much.
see, this is what
I
I'm
don't
talking
have to make
about.
yes, you do have to make excuses because you punked out.
I thought just quick
He
question
said
because
he's taking this 2 now. In that text, he said when I told him it was at 8, he said that's after 3 a.m. So it's 9:25 now. So how is it 2?
schedule a daytime one during the weekend where the time will work out. And I'm just saying that because I would love to have intelligent conversation as long as we're willing to do that. I'd have no problem with it.
Exactly.
Schedule.
I ain't got no problem with building with any Nuwapian. When I came back to DC, I built with some of the brothers. They didn't want to take pictures with me, of course, but we had a nice conversation. I don't have a problem with talking with any of these guys. But when they want to go and start, talking that yin yang, you're gonna bring out. So keep it civil, and I'll remain civil.
And that's
You
it.
know how I go.
That's
I
it.
can go for hours.
Look, that's why I'm saying the personal stuff. Look, like I said before, I have many friends I gathered in the years over there. Some I still talk to, some I still don't. But we can maintain our position. We can agree to disagree because that's reality. Not everybody's going to agree. That's reality, 100%.
Okay,
So,
hold on. Okay, cool. I can't if I can't speak and engage through audio, then I will text my question. You can't just pop on for a couple of minutes to articulate your thoughts in
well,
real time.
if I could just ask, if I could just ask, because I can't be judgmental or make comments. If I could just ask Universal Yoruba Nation, because I don't know who that is, because I know everybody uses
Yeah,
ADRs
no, he doesn't want to show himself.
Well, I don't even need to see him.
I don't need to
That's
see him either, but I just thought it
yeah.
was funny how he said, "I refuse to show who I am."
Well, I don't care about that.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if before, just so we know, just give me a brief background, if you don't mind, like what's your connection with Dr. York, the Nuwapians? Maybe I do know you, maybe I don't. I don't know, but I can't tell by the avatar. Just like brief history. I'm not asking for a whole book. Just what's your background and your connection to Dr. York, the nation, and how long you've been around, et cetera, et cetera. Just so I get an idea.
Question: how do they know that York had over 100 kids? Is it confirmed?
What was that question?
How do they know that York had over 100 kids, and is it confirmed?
Well, if you've been around, the exact number, I mean, they round it off to that, and there'll be current members to testify to that. That's nothing.
Right.
That's not anything news. Can we confirm the exact number? 100? No. Are there a lot of children that he did give birth to? Most definitely, and it's a lot. So I'm not sure in what context that question was asked.
It's just a random question. That's just
Oh, I got you. No,
Um, what
he had many women, and he did give birth to a lot of biological children. Everybody knows that.
You said
what I do know is that what was brought out, and I was reading this in part of the documents, that there was an inventory. There was an assessment of how many. As a matter of fact, Donnie, one of York's has kids with. Donnie attested to this in one of the shows where they had a list of all the parents, meaning all of the mothers, the names of the children, and their locations. So they had that documentation in the office, and that was brought up at the. I have it. I was just reading it in one of the documents. So they do have a list of um, of 101, and
Okay.
Leah, who deals with the family ancestry,
Right.
she had confirmed that there was, from what she had at the time, there was a 101 documented, and the last one to be born was born in 2001,
Right.
and the first two were twins. Oh, not two, I'm sorry, twins. They were born to two different mothers in 1964,
Right.
and the oldest male, of course, is Ishmael.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a lot. Again, I don't know. I know the question was random.
Let me.
Whether it's 100, 85, 90, all I can tell you, because I know a lot of them from what I definitely knew that. Going many years through the community, knowing many of his wife, as I said before, he even had a Asian mate that he had children with. When I was in the Spring Valley tab, I lived with that wife. She was in that tab at the time. So not only was it many women, it was different ethnicities too. He had Latino wives, Black wives, Caribbean wives, Asian wives, and he did give birth to a lot of children. It's just the numbers are a lot. So yes, there's complete truth to that, and I don't think that's a secret. Everybody knows that. Current members and not. I see somebody I saw
Hold on.
some. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mike. I wanted to point something out. Can I share my screen real quick? Real quick. Just want to pull something up real fast. Okay. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so the defendant reported that prior to his arrest, he was residing at 155 Main Street, West Main Street. Where is it? Oh, here it is. I'm sorry, I was going to bed. Okay, so information reflects that the defendant had fathered numerous children through additional relationships. The number of children fathered by the defendant is estimated to be approximately 100. Records seized by law enforcement personnel reflects that the defendant kept various records depicting
Mm-hmm.
a photograph and or name of mothers 47 and
Children.
the number of children 77. So I just wanted to put that into the record.
Now, also keep in mind in that next line, at that time, now we're going back to the mid to late 90s, leading up to when the arrest took place on May 8th, 2002. Now, notice when York was residing on 155 Mansfield Court in Athens, which I was there many times, because we would have brothers meetings there. We would have Masonic Lodge meetings when the lodge was first forming. Noted that York traveled back and forth from Athens to Eatonton. Then those that were around know there was classes every Saturday night. York would be on and off the land. It's not like he wasn't there. I just want to make that clear. We would have Ancient Mystic Order of Melchizedek gatherings on Thursday night, which transitioned into Ancient Egyptian Order gatherings when that level of school came in. So there was things going on all the time. And I know personally from traveling, I was living in Macon, Georgia at the time, and I would travel from Macon to Eatonton. And those that know me, I was up there every Saturday. And people know I'm talking about the Saturday night classes, the Jerry Springer, we used to call it sometimes, because things that went on that we would have fun with, etc. You know what I'm talking about. There was that period in the 90s up into the early 2000s where this was a weekly thing in addition to events. So he was traveling back and forth. Now, I heard you guys mention, I think when I came in, the Jesus thing. Let me clarify that story towards the end, right before he got incarcerated, because we were sitting in his backyard and he explained this story to us in Mansfield Court, what had happened. Now, if it's kind of a little bit bizarre, but I'll explain it the best way I can. If you know, right before he got incarcerated, we went into a phase around 2000, 2001-ish. You might have seen literature, you might have seen advertisement in some of the books. We were using the Holy Seed Baptist Synagogue and the Egyptian Church of Christ or Christ. That was when we were big into the Masonic thing. So we were incorporating the Masonic thing, because as you know, keep in mind, and I'm telling you this was York's plan and his strategy. As you know, that's the Bible Belt. So the strategy was to present ourselves as Masons, Christians, etc. It was a good sales pitch. We were trying to obtain a building on 2nd Street in downtown Macon, which was a Baptist church, that we were putting flyers out, by the way, saying we had it, and we didn't. We were also claiming we owned the Al-Makdi Shrine Temple in Macon, Georgia. Yeah. And we were out there actually raising money for it, and we didn't have it. And this, again, was all strategy. The Bank of America in downtown Macon denied our loan to obtain those buildings. Of course, we claimed racism. And I remember we had protests in March in front of the bank claiming that. It's just a lot of fuckery was going on. We were using the Masonic Jesus thing, but this is how York claims it came about. He said he almost had a near-death experience. And yes, the being called Yeshua, Jesus of 2,000 years ago, came to him and told him he fell off the path and that he needed to get back on the path and do the job that he came here and sent to do. Hence, we went back into the whole Jesus thing. It was really, when you look at that time, and this is when my suspicions, I had a lot of difficulty processing this, because to me, it was taking a step back. Because to me, it was like we were going back into some recycled Ansar doctrine. It was just a bit more modernized with a little Christian flavor to it. And it was a little confusing for me. And now, for years, we're talking about how this was a mythological thing. And then we're turning around on the back end saying, no, that this is literal. If you look at the last sets of audio and classes that York did, it was heavily surrounded by religious and Christian dogma. Everything, he even incorporated this fake gospel type of intro, and he set up on the audios like it was him speaking, in a church setting. It was the whole, Christian evangelical thing. And then the Holy Seed Baptist Synagogue gets even more bizarre. He was, he took on the rabbi persona. So what we were trying to do at that time was we were trying to cover all the bases of monotheism. And then obviously we had the Shriner Order, which was dealing with Islam mysticism. So when you really look at it, it's like we went back into a recycled aspect of the Ansarullah community. When you look at everything that was going on, everything was engulfed in that. And why people don't explain where that came from and don't really and have some justification to say that was okay. I had questions. Matter of fact, I can give people an incident. I almost got into a fight on the land with a brother who was at that time the worshipful master of the lodge, black. And for those who have been around, you know who Black is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We hashed that out in Athens, but we were told, we were given these big boxes of these. You remember the little pamphlets with the disciples on them? You remember that shit?
Yeah, I remember that.
They were these little pamphlets that we were supposed to sell for $1. They had like the Prophet John on it. And
Yeah, I still have a couple of them. I
And-
still have them.
I just wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I just wasn't feeling it. I just felt like we were going backwards. I felt like it was confusing, and I didn't even feel comfortable doing that shit. So I spoke out on it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, one thing led to another. You know, everybody's big and bold when they got their boys around them. So one thing led to another. Me and a couple of good brothers of mine that were close with me from Providence, Rhode Island, the crew out there. We took a stand, and I dropped the boxes down. I said, I'm not selling these shits. You can take these back. And I dropped them right on the floor, and I was kicked out of the temple because I didn't feel right doing that, because I felt like this shit is bullshit. Like, what are we doing here? You understand? So I want to make this clear. People were speaking out back then, saying things, but you got to understand, when you relocate your whole family like I did, I left everything I had, moved to Georgia, just like many others did. I ain't the only one. But when you put yourself in a predicament, it's not as easy. You kind of got to be cautious of what you say and do, because anybody knows the history on the land. If you lived on the land, oh man, and you didn't, people had it out for you, they'll kick you out in the middle of the night. Everybody knows stories about that. A good brother, Al Bass, a Dominican brother, he went through it several times. I've had to pick people up in the middle of the night that got kicked off the land to take them somewhere where they wanted to go because they got kicked out. People literally were kicked out in the middle of the night.
Women with their kids. I remember back in
children,
Florida.
men.
Yeah.
The-
Yahweh
the-
Ben Yahweh and them took in a sister because she had nowhere to go in
Right.
Florida. I remember. I was there when that happened.
Okay, I mean, this was regular, and again, I'm not attributing that to York only, because there was just this competition on the land with the brothers and the sisters for York's to be in York's favor. So I'm not blaming York for that. Now, was York aware of it? Yes, I even heard to a degree. Sometimes he might have gave those orders if people weren't cooperating, but I can't blame all of that on him. Some of that was done by people that lived on the land, and if anybody ever been up to the land, shit, and you saw some of them conditions. Now, I will attest to this, and I witnessed this. I want to make this clear. York did offer those brothers in the barn many times money to fix it up, but their ego wouldn't take it. They would say, no, we got to show the old man that we can do it. We don't need his money. And I remember York turning to me and with a conversation one time, see how foolish these guys are? It wasn't about that. I could remember many times when we went, I think it was called Godova's. It was a Mexican restaurant in Athens, because I sometimes drove York in my car. We would drive in, and I would get hate just for the fact, why is he driving with him? Wow. Just stupid shit like that. We would get in the restaurant, true story. And brothers would go to the restaurant knowing they didn't have any money to eat. Keep this in mind now. They would go to the restaurant not knowing they had, just because they wanted to go. And then when the bill came, crickets. And many times York would say, what's the holdup? You understand? I'll pay the bill. They would refuse. I'm saying all that to say that's how deep that devotion and loyalty was, to the point where it gave a lot of people false pride. You understand what I'm saying? You're dealing with that type of mentality. And that could be a good or a bad thing, because I'm not going to lie to you. At one point, I had that mentality. And that's why I keep saying to people go, why were you there so long and you left? Why are you saying all this stuff now? Because you got to understand, I was in that same mentality that a lot of them are in now. I didn't look at it from this perspective because I didn't know certain things then that I do know now. It's that simple. It's not even that deep. Everybody tries to make that a big issues for any ex-members that come forward and speak. It's that simple. It's not even that deep. But we have to take into account and understand.
Of course, it's still active. Why wouldn't it be?
Say it again.
Yoruba in the chat talking about he gonna come back up. Is the link still active? Why wouldn't it be? This live ain't ended. Yeah. But to finish my point with the Christian thing, that's where that came from, and that's where he was at up until the moment he got incarcerated. We were into a heavy Christian influenced doctrine, and for those that were around know.
To me, it came off as just a recycled answer doctrine. So yes, there was this whole salvation thing that he was saved and Jesus saved him from a near-death experience. This is reality. I was there. And this is coming out of York's mouth in his backyard in 155 Mansfield Court, sitting around the pool. And I can tell you brothers that were there. Okay. Sadiq. Y'all know him as what's his name? Yeah. Rick was there. Danny, and who I think passed on, I'm not sure. And I know Mattoon, Puerto Rican Danny and Puerto Rican Mattoon, the two brothers, they were there. I could throw Matt Keane. He was in that. He was at that conversation. Mattoon from London, he was there. He can testify.
Chubby dude, yeah.
I can go on and on. So that's fact. That's fact. And this is why I've said I have no issue. I'm trying to be as transparent about things that I can. Yes, there was a choir too. That's right, Mujahid 72. We had a choir too. We would march in the parades.
You still ain't got no volume. You have to allow your mic. There you go. Can you say something? Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead. Hello?
2.
We can hear you.
1 2 1 2.
We can hear you. Yes.
Can hear him, but it's very low.
Say something else.
I can hear him, but it just sounds really low. It sounds like he's far away.
See if you can cut your volume up. Because I cut it up as far as I can on this end. Cupcake said there's still Nuwapians living in communal groups.
Again, I want to be clear. I can only speak up until the time I was there. And what I do know from some people, I know there are some people living together. I couldn't tell you as far as communal living. I will say this. I've tried to talk to some brothers, not all. You have to understand the way the community was structured, the inner circle of members, and not all by their fault, have this very get-by mentality. I want to make this clear. This is fact. They have let's just get by mentality. They're not really taught to strive for the better things in life. And I say that not because money and material things are important.
Yeah, we can hear you a little better now.
Go ahead. No, you want me to finish or just wait?
Go ahead and finish.
Say it again.
Go ahead and finish.
Yeah. A lot of the core inner circle members that took that commune lifestyle, living mentality, it's really never changed up until this day. A lot of them bounce from apartment to apartment, place to place, because a lot of them have a hustle, get by mentality. That was productive for back then in the 80s, maybe to a certain degree in the 90s. And look, that's your choice. But you only find that amongst the inner core members. If you look at any influential people that were affiliated with the group in some kind of shape, form, or fashion, rappers, entertainers, lawyers, and doctors. And I'm not talking about rappers and entertainers like Tragedy, Intelligent Hoodlum. We lived with him in the Brooklyn community. Jazzo. I'm not talking about guys before making it big. I'm talking about influential people that might have been affiliated with the community. They weren't part of that whole aspect of how things were run. This only goes on amongst that inner circle of Nuwapians who, unfortunately, a lot still live like that. They shack up together, and whatever. That's their business. That's fine. But what I'm saying is, if we talk about in that doctrine that the only thing that is constant is change, well, they haven't really changed anything that they're doing when you really look at it. They're still setting up tables and peddling, and that's cool, whatever. They're still propagating books and selling little trinkets. And as I said, that's a hustle. That's not really a business. That's cool. But my whole thing is, where's the change and the growth, right? Where's that? Because if you really look at what's going on in 2021, there's only a very minimal slight variation of what we were doing and how we were doing it back in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. It's not much of a difference. I'm saying that to say, when you have that settle mentality by choice, this is what it produces. So it's easy to captivate the minds of people that have that way of thinking. But when you're trying to think and you get ostracized, money is important, regardless of what people tell you. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. I totally disagree with that. And it's not just with Nuwapians. I see in a lot of conscious circles, we act like being broke is some virtue of spirituality, like sacrificing and suffering is a great thing. No, we got to change that loser broke mentality. This is not about that. We're living in a day and time where we see what's going on in the world. There's no middle class no more. There's either you got money or you don't. So we better get in line with what the fuck is going on, okay? And figure out how we're going to move forward in these upcoming years to be able to take care of ourselves, our family, and our children. We ain't going to be able to do that by selling actual fact scrolls and incense and oil. That's not going to happen. You know, that's what I mean when I say, what's the long-term plan? And then people will constantly say stupid stuff, which I don't even waste my time addressing. What have we moved on to? And I know my good brother, Nuwapian Assassin, AKA Amon, I think he goes by now, always brings that question up. Well, we've moved on to plenty great things. I'm not interested in bringing, as I said before, a new doctrine or a new movement or organization. I'm done following people. I don't follow anything or anybody anymore. I'm not interested in being part of anybody's organization or movement, but my own. Okay, I make the decisions now. I'm not dictated to by anything or anybody. I want to make that clear. So I have no interest to do that. A lot of us, because most people don't really know what we do, a lot of us are doing a lot of impactful things where we're at in the community and the world. A lot of us have long-term plans for our family and our children. And a lot of us are building things for the future when we're gone and not here. That's what we're doing. Okay. I don't see that on the other end. I see a bunch of people hoping and praying that some man is going to get out and take them to the promised land in Africa. And that's not going to happen. It's just fact. And I say that only to wake up some of these people, especially, you know, friends that I gathered over the years. It's sad to watch them still in this same mentality and hoping that this is going to happen one day. Okay. And what's going to happen is you're going to be saying it at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. And then before you know it, your whole life is gone by you. And as I said before, when I think I was on last time, you had many elders that I knew, many elders that I respected. I mentioned Abiyaya and other elders that I can attest to, you know, left here didn't have shit.
Yeah.
You know, and nobody did shit for them either. Nope. I mean, the only thing
you can look at.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mike. You can look at poor Duma. Duma in I was in New York. As old as he is, or it was at this point, that would set up a table still selling old Ansar publications.
Yeah.
What's scarce, what little he could make. I mean, the guy can't even walk, and he's still pushing this stuff. And all the guys, all the members would do is just see him as an elder and want to take pictures with him. But the guy is living in a shelter in New York. I mean, listen, there is no retirement in the Nuwapian cult.
Well, that's
the
right.
people that were a part of it, nothing.
You're on your own. And I brought that question up many times to brothers I know on the side. What's the long-term healthcare plan for the elders? And I don't get any answers for that. Guys like you're talking about, guys that they were the pioneers. They laid, let's not just say the guys and the females, obviously, that were there at the time. Let's just not make this a male thing.
Of course.
Because there's female elders too. Let's keep that real. Mm-hmm. But what's the long-term health care plan for them when they get old, sick, and they don't have no retirement money? Most of them are probably collecting next to none in Social Security because most of them didn't work or garner any accumulation to collect Social Security because they don't have a resume to validate any work history to collect Social Security. They don't have no health care. So most of them probably don't even have insurance. They might have Medicaid. This is what I'm saying. We don't want to talk about this thing because that's worldly stuff, but that's reality. We live in the motherfucking world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we got to keep it 100. We live in the world. People do get sick. Shit does happen. But there is no plan for any of that because, as you know, it's the only plan to fix anything in the nation. And even when I was there, collect donations.
Yeah.
Let's hit people
Bumming
with money and collect donations. That's their plan for everything. We need to collect the X amount of money to do this. We need to collect the X amount of money to get that done. We got to buy this. We got to get this case. We got to file this. That's it. And this is
he ain't finished answering the first question, Jared. Just be patient. You know what, you're finna get booted out my chat.
But anyway.
Yeah, but I even remember the sister, one of the sisters, Sarah. She had a child, and we were just coming out of that whole Ansar thing, and she had nothing because of her mate. He just abandoned her, and this poor girl. It was me, Mutaki, and a couple other people in DC, and we was rolling past 14th Street because we had just stopped, broke our tables down, and we saw the girl prostituting up on 14th Street, or right by Logan Circle. And we was like, oh, no, that's not her. Yeah, that was her. Because she was like, look, I have to do what I have to do to take care of mine. Because y'all not going to do nothing. So I can give you a whole lot of stories of that.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff, man. I mean, again, everybody's going to have their experience based on what they experienced and saw when they were there. And I get that. Not everybody's going to have the same feedback, but there's a lot of similarities in all of our feedback, good or bad. It's there, it exists, it's a reality, and obviously people can attest to it that were there. A lot of these how things were operated, that's not a known anything that we're talking about now. It's not like we're saying anything that was a deep secret. It's just disturbing to me in 2021. Like I always said this, you've got to be a representation of the doctrine that you support. So my thing is this, and I have got a side conversation with some some Nuwapians down here that I run into occasionally that I still, have decent relationship with. We don't see things eye to eye. But my simple question to them is, if this is a representation of their Egyptian gods, and this is what their Egyptian gods are doing for them, their Nagaro, or whatever they're calling them now, and this is the other psychological game you got to be careful of. Because my question is, obviously, these Egyptian Nagaro are not listening to their ashutats, their meditations, and their chanting. And then here comes the broke person's mentality, the poor man, not financially, but the poor in spirit mentality. Anytime something doesn't work on York's behalf, it's because his followers don't love him enough to get him out of jail. That's been the hustle from day one. See, he's not out because you don't love him enough. You understand what I'm saying? That's the game. And anybody that's been around knows that. So if things ain't working, ain't going the right way, it's not because of anything of York's fault or anything he did. It's always because, you don't love him enough to get him out. This is all a test. He can walk out of there, but he's not. He has to get out of there. You guys have to get him out of there. I mean, that's a nice little crutch to fall back on when you really look at it. But I've always presented this. When you see some of them, are they a living example of this royal doctrine that they speak about? Because majority of them I know are struggling on all levels. I'm not just talking about financially. They're struggling on all levels in their personal life, professional life. So if that's what that doctrine breeds, why would anybody want to really be a part of that? You understand what I'm saying? Why would anybody really want to be a part of that in 2021 when we're doing stuff we were doing back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s? Because when that's all you know how to do, that's all you know how to do. It's that simple. And that's why I'm saying it's not even that complex. It's not even that deep. And I just hope for some of the brothers and sisters that I know and I still have some care and compassion for them. I hope some of them wake up, but they're going to have to wake up on their own terms. I'm not trying to force anybody to do anything or see things my way. They're going to have to want to do that, for themselves. So it is what it is.
Okay,
Well
Jay. Jared wanted to know, could y'all give an estimate on how many people staying on the land?
Yeah, it would fluctuate 150 to 200 people roughly in that area. There was never just a set number, only because I say that because people were leaving, coming on and off. regularly, but it was always. Then you had people that might have come from communities such as out of the country, like London, like Mattoon. He would come up there and stay for periods. So you had other members that would come and just stay temporarily and leave. But it would fluctuate in that area, give or take.
Okay. Ain't nobody got no problem with you asking questions, but you trying to rush people, dude. That ain't the type of party.
So protect the children. From what in this question, can y'all address the amount of people who received immunity, no rush? From what I was reading in the transcripts, it was just Habiba, and Nikki was just it was implied that she had an immunity agreement, but I don't see that in any of the documents. So what I've seen, it was just Habiba Washington.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I think I'm missing a question, maybe.
Is the Yoruba nation fellow going to show? Is he going to speak? I'm
He
just
hasn't.
curious as to.
Yoruba, are you gonna try again?
I guess not. Oh, you can enjoy the remainder of the show.
Pretty much.
Okay, so where we're going to go now?
Yeah, maybe we could stay. I'll probably stay on for a little longer because I'm not really seeing. There's nothing really to
No,
really address here. To be
I
honest.
mean, because I mentioned it to Nuwabian Assassin. I had kind of invited him on his page. They mentioned last night that they wanted
Thank you,
calling
Dot.
me out, and I'm like, okay, send him the email. And nobody's.
Everywhere I done went. Chuck running. Chuck this. Chuck that.
Yeah, I know.
Don't nobody show up. I hit everybody up yesterday. Yoruba the only
Chuck
one that
run.
showed up, and apparently his mic's so bad he
Man,
can't
well,
get on.
Chuck don't run from none of these Bamas. That's my key word. These Bamas never run.
Yeah, I mean, but again, this we should all be at a point because it's been going on long enough. We all should be at a point to have, and I know it's easier said than done. We all should be at a point to have intelligent conversation. Unfortunately, not everybody's on that mindset. I don't care who it is. I've made offers. I'll even talk with people in private because I've made it clear too. This is not, you come on platforms for this because it's a topic and it's being discussed. But I don't need to do this for the cameras. It's not mandatory. I've offered anybody that wants to talk off the record, I'll talk with you off the record and show you some of the things that we're talking about. I've made that offer to people here in person, and I never got anybody to show up. I'd be willing to sit down, go over documents, not to try to convince you or change your mind, but at least for you to be pushed in the right direction to make an intelligent, conscious decision. Before, because I'm saying this because you got to remember, I said this, I'm going to say it again. I too, when York first got arrested those first couple of years, I was in that same mindset they're in now. You couldn't tell me anything.
Same here.
I know that block. I know that mindset. I know it. And if you said the wrong thing, it would trigger me. Okay. Okay. It would trigger me and I would be very resistant with you. So I'm understanding. I know that. I understand why they react because why I was doing the same thing. I'm not just saying this based on my own opinion. I'm saying if you said something in the first couple of years, while I was working on the case, while I was visiting him in jail, you couldn't say anything wrong. I would get defensive. But when I started to uncover what I uncovered, I had to be real with myself. And I made the conscious decision, like I said last time. That's what changed. It's that simple. It's not deep. People bring up all this. Oh, they were in the organization all those years. Why now? Why are they speaking out now? Well, that's just like, what if you was in a marriage for 20 years and you found your husband or wife cheated on you and you left? Or why are you leaving now? You was in a marriage for 20 years. Well, I'm leaving because it wasn't what I thought it was. You understand? That's all.
Yeah.
It's not even that deep. We're trying to make this into something deep. It's the same thing. You just sometimes pills are hard to swallow. You take your L and you keep it moving. That's all. I just took my L and keep it moving. Ain't no big deal. It's not even that deep, man. It's not even that deep. And
Same
that's how
here.
we got to look at this. That's
But
all.
they don't see it that way. I don't
Mhm.
understand it. It's baffling to me. Other than it having some type of ulterior motive when it comes to economics, they want to keep people deceived because in that deception they're able to bring in revenue. Where that money is distributed, who knows?
Right. Right.
Did York say he was from another planet, and did you believe it?
I
Listen,
never
how I
believed
used to break
it.
that down to people. It's a good question. No, no, and look, I have all transparent talking about this. So I'm not embarrassed about anything. It's clear. I did believe he had beings working through him from other planets. I'm gonna keep it real, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because the way it was presented, right? You always got to remember, it was not the physical man York. It was these beings were housed inside the physical man York, and that's how I used to explain it. And I realize now as I look back on it, that was me justifying for myself so I didn't look crazy to other people. Okay. You understand? Um, but my whole thing is, did I believe that York was in some shape, form, or fashion at that time connected to that whole extraterrestrial thing? Most definitely. And I'm sure Chuck would agree with the same thing, or any other member at that time, because we keep in mind, we were in that mindset. You got to understand, when I first came into the community, I'm fresh, 11th grade going into 12th grade. And if you understand what was going on at that time, late 80s, mid to late 80s, Public Enemy, the hip hop movement, we were searching as youth for something that we could cling on to. And at that time, I know growing up in New York, it was either the 5% Nation, the Nation of Islam, or the Ansarul Law community. If you grew up in New York in the five boroughs, Zulu Nation too, this is what you were exposed to. So it's almost like you picked your path, because everybody I grew up was affiliated with one or the other. I originally started out studying the lessons of the 5% Nation of Gods and Earth, like I said last time, because a lot of brothers in my high school, I was introduced to a lot of Nation of Gods and Earths in high school. And then that led me, as I said, to, coming across the Ansarul Law community and York's books. And that's when I did the shift, because at that time, you got to understand, a lot of us came in as teenagers, man. We were fresh out of high school. I moved literally right in after I graduated high school, 17 going on 18 years old. And you got to understand what was going on at that time. We were searching. And the Ansarul Law community, Nation Islam, 5% Nation, and the Zulu Nation, that was big. Still is to a degree. Well, not the Ansarul Law community, but that those movements have stood the test of time. Now, regardless of what you say about the Nation of Islam, and I don't agree with everything that they teach, but I will say that they're consistent in what they do. Same thing with the 5% Nation of Gods and Earth. I can resonate with a lot of stuff they say. I'm not talking about all that Yakub shit and some of the mythological stuff in the lessons, but the whole principle of being God and doing for self, I can resonate with that, because in essence, that's what this is about, doing for self. Nothing, look, nobody can do shit for you. Nothing's coming for you. York can't do anything for you. Allah, Jehovah, God, Elohim, Anunnaki, Nagaru, that is only as real as you accept it. The only person that's going to be able to do something for you is you. So if you don't get up off your ass and do something for yourself, you'll be sitting around hoping and waiting that something or somebody's coming for you to do something for you. And it's just not going to happen. That's the reality. That's the wake-up call.
Now, in my case, I didn't see here. It was a difficult thing because you are when we did these classes, the Sunday classes, you had to teach the doctrine the way that York wanted it taught. That's part of why we had to
True.
send down
True indeed.
videotapes,
True
audio
indeed.
tapes. So when a question would come up about York being an extraterrestrial, you had to kind of craft it in a way where, it got to a point where once he said about, well, that's not my experience, your experience. So when a person went there, because I didn't believe it, I just couldn't. It didn't make sense to me because, on one hand, I'm saying for me, on one hand, he would say that he is the embodiment of Melchizedek. And then when I look at the images of Melchizedek, I would ask the brother, I would say, okay, so if because we were built in debate, so if he's the embodiment of Melchizedek, does Melchizedek look like him? And he just scratched my head, and say, "Oh no." I said, "Well, so if that's an image, if this picture is of York of Doc, and Melchizedek is inside him, and then he has under the caption, the angel Michael, but that image is York. I don't understand it. Well, what does Melchizedek look like? If that's him inside him, as well as Yanun, as well as Umar Utu and all everybody else, you know. So we were crafted to the ways.
You faded out, Chuck.
Hey, Mike, you're Sicilian and what?
Lebanese.
Sicilian and Lebanese.
Yes. And let me address that. I make I make no apologies for that. You got to understand, if you didn't hear my explanation, remember York in all his books, and I'll give you ones, Leviathan, What Race Was Jesus, and a host of others. He considered these people part of the Nubian family. Let me stress that. That's how I became. Say it again.
I got some pictures that Chuck sent me. I have a
Yeah.
tendency to see the mumbles of myself. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is how I was recruited into the organization. In those books, he describes the different ethnicities that make up the Nubian family. In that, outside of what we know as the Negroid race or African race, he also includes obviously Latinos in there, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Cubans, not Spaniards. In those books, he would consider people of Spain and Spaniard Europe. He would also include Japanese, some Chinese, and other ethnicities of Asian, and some sub-Saharan groups, and then also people from the southern Mediterranean and Northeast Africa and Arabia. And that's where my lineage came in. And that was the recruiting point, how they got me in. So as I said before, obviously I'd be a fool to sit here. And I'm not trying to say that I was came in the organization thinking I was 100% blooded African. But anyway, who is? There's nobody that can walk around this day and say that they're a full-blooded, quote unquote, Nubian or African, because everybody's fourth generation products. Okay, so that's not fact. But I was instilled with the fact that you did belong to the Nubian tribe because you were connected to it based on those teachings and how he broke it down. So that's how I got here. So I want to make this clear. I make no apologies for that. I'm proud of who I am. I couldn't give a fuck who likes it or who don't. That shit is irrelevant to me because I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I went through all that bullshit, all the racial nonsense. But guess what? I stuck through all of it. None of them punk bitches could chase me away. And I went through it and I stood there like a man. And I have no qualms backing down to anything or anybody. And anybody that knows me knows that's the type of person I am. I do what I do for me, what needs to be done for me. So I didn't let none of those clowns chase me away. But outside of that, I had a lot of great brothers that supported me and treated me like a son, like a little brother. And I mentioned Brother Anthony Evans, Bunny, always treated me with the utmost respect. Taught me a lot of things. I always felt like when we would talk, it was like talking to a bigger brother. So there, just as many as there was haters that I might have had issues with, there was many good people that were genuine and looked out. So yeah, I just want to be clear on that because I know that bullshit comes up because that's the first game they'll try to come at me with. But like I say, if you want to hold your own with the doctrine, I probably know the doctrine better than most of them know it anyway, but that's a whole nother story.
But I want my chat to at least give you common courtesy while you're here, because you didn't have to.
I feel you.
You don't have to, you don't have to answer their questions. So they just
I don't mind, but I appreciate you doing that. But I don't mind because there's like I said, there's nothing but transparency here. I've heard it all before. There ain't nothing you're gonna say that ain't new.
I mean, some of them, I don't think they meant no harm.
Right,
it was just the way they worded it. I went on ahead and answered, and I wasn't sure.
All good.
But I couldn't remember the other half. That's why I said something Mediterranean, but I don't remember what.
It's all good. Believe me, it's all good. No big deal.
Yeah. Not you, Jared.
But anyway, I think
since I was just asking you to be, because I couldn't get it with the all. I know everybody make typos and stuff.
No doubt.
Look, if you're doing something wrong, I'm gonna tell you this is your first warning. Just know that's what happens around here. But he says, since you're older, what book will you read? Would you prefer to read now? Is that what you mean?
I'm not sure of the context of the question.
Rewrite it whole, Jared.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a little vague. I don't know. It's a question about a book, but maybe he need to reword it.
I think when he was typing it, he messed up and
Yeah,
Twitter
yeah,
fixed
no doubt.
it. Keys too small.
Yeah, well, good. But yeah, I mean, other than that, yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yoruba, can you try your mic again?
Is there anybody here on the radio show?
Yeah, I don't think that brother's
Say,
coming.
what's this? Cole Gets. What is this? Is there any way to
Ask
hear
Chuck if
those
they
old
can
radio
debate
shows?
radio show.
Um,
Sure.
I can ask Unc because Unc has the all of them, all the whole. You remember those shows we did on remember those CDs that York had, Chuck Morgan debates, or Doctor was it Larry Morgan
No,
debates?
Boo said he had some of them, so I asked him could he get them
Yeah,
digitized or
I
whatever.
mean, you if you want to hear them, I still have some in. I think I have them in a storage locker somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Hold
some
on,
old original audio, but
I
yeah,
think it's
if you want them, I can put
go
them up
ahead
and
and put
listen
the
to
link
them.
down in the chat. But all y'all don't crowd up here at once, and y'all know how I like it orderly. Come on up. The
Yeah,
ladder's down. Can somebody
come on in.
grab this email and not email YouTube?
Let's have a conversation.
Yeah, YouTube page and website up at the top and rotate it back in the chat. Oh, he says, with all the books and the BS, what would you read? Or you don't fool with none of them.
Oh no, I don't read any of the books no more. I made that clear. I actually don't have any. I have books.
Oh no, I don't think he's talking about York books. I'm saying
Oh,
outside of York books, any other
oh no, no,
religious.
no. Oh sure, oh sure. I read and study. Like I mentioned, Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum. I mentioned him last time. Not just Dark Light Consciousness, but he's got a good series of book out on various different topics. So he's somebody that I'll definitely read, one of my main go tos. I mean, I pretty much will pick up anything that I can learn something from. I'll read books on the occult, metaphysics. There's another guy that I like to read, Dennis William Huck, who writes books on alchemy and hermeticism, stuff like that. So yeah, of course, still reading and study. The journey and the study and never stops. But I'm pretty open. I'll pretty much pick up anything. But what I've learned to do now is getting older. Do you agree with everything that everybody writes in the book? Absolutely not. I've learned to cipher out of what information I read that applies to me and resonates with me. Whatever I don't agree with, I just leave it alone, because I don't think anybody's going to ever pick up a book and be in 100% agreement with everything that they read in there. So as you get older, you just learn to kind of flow with what resonates with you, which you can incorporate in your spiritual path. And then I've learned to just, whatever I may not fully agree with or resonate with, I just leave it alone. That's just where I'm at in my journey. So most definitely, I study, read, and try to research as far as when it comes to my own spiritual development. Yeah, no doubt that never stops. That's a continual process.
Okay, Hada says, well, there's safe houses for those who wanted to disconnect.
Yes, and I can only speak of areas I was familiar with. Yes, there was in Georgia, Florida, because that's where I was at the time. So yes, those places, and that was just simply some people who had their own residents taking people in that they knew. There was also that, as I said, going on when people had issues on the land and were either kicked off, booted off, or left. Now some left on their own because they had issues and they wanted to leave. But you got to remember, it's not that easy when you're leaving something and you don't really have nothing but the clothes on your back. So it's a tough move. And I remember an incident where I was kicked out, and this was in 1991 going into 92. I was kicked out of the Miami community by Kedar. I know you know Kedar, Chuck Kedar from DC, Elder Kedar. I don't know if he's still around, but we squashed it because Kedar came down here. We actually squashed it at the first Savior's Day. I mean, we got into a fight. I threw a transistor radio at him from at the top of the stairs. I mean, I threw that shit at him.
Radio.
Yeah. That's how I'm going back. We had these little alarm clock radios that we used to have in the bait to wake us up in the morning for Fudger, because you had to be up at the crack of dawn, for those that know Fudger prayer, or you had to set that alarm to switch your guard shift with the brother that was doing the overnight guard. I've fallen asleep on guard and busted my whole face. And if you
Hey.
fell asleep on guard, you would get an ass whooping because that was like saying you harmed or put the children and the women in danger. Shit like that went on. But I got kicked out in 91. This is a true story. Because you got to understand, when we went out peddling all day, we would come in at the end of the day, and whoever was the emir of the or the imam of the masjid, you would come in at the end of the night, turn your turn in, and then you would get whatever you turned in. That's kind of what you would get as far as product: incense, oils, books. So literally in Miami, which was a totally different school for me than New York, we used to walk everywhere. And I wasn't used to all that walking, and I fucked my shoes up. I had holes in the bottom of my shoes. True story. Went to Payless shoe store to buy a pair of shoes. Kept the receipt. And then when I turned in that night, I gave the receipt to Kedar, and I got accused of being a thief, stealing from the family. Literally. To the point where they called a family meeting and tried to put me on trial on blast in front of my wife.
Yeah.
Try to embarrass me, and you don't even want to know what I did. I told Kedar, I told everybody to kiss my motherfucking ass. I said, I'm going to do whatever I got to need to do. I ain't walking around in 90+ degree heat with holes in my shoes. So then I was told that I had to get my shit and get out. And I took myself, my wife. That was the first time I got kicked out. And I left, and I had to go back to New York. And I don't want to tell y'all what it's like to be on a Greyhound. If you haven't ever... if you haven't...
Nasty, man.
Brother, Willie, I got to tell you my story with Keto.
Right.
Go ahead.
And we'll tell you the last one. Then in Philadelphia, at the time I was in Philadelphia in 92. For those that remember, during that time, there was the Young Disciples program. And the Young Disciples program, Brooklyn was the Young Disciples Masjid for single young disciples. And Philly was turned into the Young Disciples Masjid for married couples. So I was in New York at the time, got woken up in the middle of the night. And this was Puerto Rican Mattoon, who was in Baltimore at the time, who was traveling from New York and was heading back down, and was told that he picked me, my wife up. Now, mind you, my first son was just born. He was born in Jamaica Hospital in Queens. He was just born. This is like, I'm going November, December of 92. My oldest son was born October 26, 92. So he was an infant. We got woken up in the middle of the night, freezing cold. We had to get all that stuff, what we could grab at the time, in a van. My tune had one of them like 12 passenger vans. And I was just told, grab what you can. You guys are assigned to the married couples masjid, which was Philadelphia, West 52nd and Market. Took me to Philly. Got there with a brother at the time I had problems with in New York, Sajat. And I don't know if people remember Sajat. He's a Puerto Rican brother, real light skin, curly hair. He used to think he was Dr. York. He used to wear these big ass sunglasses like Dr. York. Really arrogant dude. I clashed with him because, like I say, I'm a grinder, I'm a hustler. I got to Philly, and I was making money holding down this fruit stand for some dude that was throwing me like $1.50 a day, while I can set up my shit next to him. So I'm making $1.50 just watching his shit. And then I'm hustling up my money selling my stuff. So I was told, oh, you can't do that. You're working for the Canaanite. This old ridiculous ass shit. Now, keep in mind, these dudes were selling bootleg cassettes. Yeah, cassettes. That shows you how far back I'm going. These dudes were selling bootleg cassettes telling me that I was doing something wrong because I was getting $1.50 for just watching somebody stand. That's all. And collecting money. And at the end of the day, he hit me off with $1.50. And then I'm doing my thing right there next to it, and I pull whatever I pull from that. So I'm doing good. So here's the game. So they told me, again, another family. See, this is what they used to like to do to you when you violated their protocol. They would call a family meeting. That's what it was called. It was hilarious. And it basically was a meeting to put you on blast in front of everybody. So they called a family meeting in Philadelphia. And this dude had the balls to say to me, Sajat, they were kicking me out of the community, but my wife and my little infant child could stay. I said, man, you motherfuckers are all crazy. You kiss my motherfucking ass. And my wife looked at them and looked at me like they was fucking crazy. I said, man, I'll tell you what, before you can even say anything else, I'll be having my shit. I'm getting the fuck out of here. And I left. Okay. So these are the type of things that went on fat. Okay. This is the type of, so you got to understand it's not as easy and I can understand at that time why some people it's not just as easy to say or do things. But I learned from those experiences later when the community lifestyle disbanded and we kind of branched out on our own, and then it was open bookstores everywhere, no more community living. Well, for the most part, you still have what they call tabernacles. They weren't called communities. When the Ansarullah movement disbanded, they were called tabernacles.
The tab.
Yeah, the tab. That went on in early to mid 90s, and then it kind of fizzled out in the early 2000s. So you still had people that, quote unquote, were doing that community style living. But I totally disbanded that when it got to the very early to mid 90s. No more. I was done with that shit.
Man,
I was done with it.
that because you brought up two names, Kedar and Matim. When Matim was running Baltimore, we had an incident where there was let me let you real fast. In Baltimore at one time, people who wanted to make some extra money by taking these drugs from the hospital to determine their effectiveness. Some people took it and made, get paid, and then some suffered side effects. So one brother suffered side effects. I can't remember his name. He was in the community and he was getting a check from the hospital as compensation because it had did something to his head, kind of off a little bit. So one day we came home and he was outside across the street because on Airedale Avenue where the Baltimore community was, brother was there eating some rice. We got it from the Korean store, some fries and some rice, and shrimp fried rice and fries. So Matim saw him, didn't say anything until about 2 a.m, where everybody had to get up and go to the masjid or Minzarab at that time because we moved over to the Hebrew
House of the Sustainer. That's what that translates to, by the way.
Yeah, House of the Sustainer. And so everybody's sitting, huh?
All right, go ahead. I was gonna say, Moose said, do y'all know Nicole Bodie?
I know of her. I don't know her personally, but I do know who she is. I don't know her personally, though.
I don't know anything about
I've
her.
seen some of her videos and shows.
That's it. So, real fast. So what happened was he had this family meeting, and then they put this brother who's a little bit mentally off, put him up in a chair. And Matim, you know how Matim is. He has a big picture of York as that, that lamb picture, the lamb.
Yeah.
That illuminated. Yeah, he had that picture sitting up, and then he would talk to it, saying, "Baba, we caught this trader stealing from the babies because he only turned in $5, yet he had enough money to go and feed his face, and he was robbing from the baby." So we had this family meeting, and he's trying to determine what will be his fate, because by that time we had brought Faisal, Abdullah, and another York kid from upstate, and they were down in Baltimore. And everybody was going around, because like Adela said, well, my father would whoop his ass and take his money, and then everybody was giving their little post, So my thing was like, because me and my wife she was like, what in the world is going on? And I was like, I say we just let the brother go, and he goes, I didn't see, because shit, I didn't see anything wrong with it. The brother was eating, he was eating, he was hungry.
Yeah.
And so Matim, he got all theatrical, took the money. Because the brother had like $200. He took the money and then he threw it down. This is blood money,
That's Matt too, boy. That sounds just like it.
Yeah, and he said, how that he had that strong accent, and
Well, he was part of the SOY, so he got that when he was
I remember I got the videos of him in there, and he would what happened was they put the brother out on the street at about 3 a.m, threw him out. He said, get all of you and just threw him out, And then, my girl at the time, she was just so outraged. She's like, I don't want to be a part of nothing like this. The brother is slow. Why are you going to put the man out and he has nowhere to go?
Wow, that went on.
Made the guy instantly homeless. He had nowhere to go. And, of course, Kedar, when we was in Florida, oh, man, just what you said, because I remember, because there was one day, it was me, a Deerdum, and 2 dudes that was from D.C. that came down. And we because
was that a meme? Check out the meme.
Yeah.
You had the big family, yeah.
Yep. And so what had happened was, in Florida at that time, we had this conflict with Yahweh Ben Yahweh, and people
Oh,
were real standoffish with us and didn't want us, coming up
remind
to
me to
them.
tell you something about that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And because we was wearing the white, and we
And
would
they
have a
wore the white.
Tagia, but we might have an Emma on, so
Right.
they
It
would
looked very
stay
similar.
away from us, all that shit. So what
Yeah.
had happened was, one day I had asked my mother, send me some money down. So she had Western Union like $100, and so I got it, and so I got the brothers some. They look after we came in, brought them some potato chips, got some sodas, the stuff we would normally eat, and everybody was happy. We turned in what little money we had. Keita, they saw it because she said it's Ta'am Jaz, Ta'am, stuff. And nobody was really hungry because they had to eat this little bag of potato chips as we was coming
Or
back in.
celery sticks, peanut butter, and apples. Remember that
All of
shit?
that, man, dude had us because all she made was lentil beans. I hated lentil beans,
Yeah, me too.
And so anyway, he found out that I had brought the brothers some food and drinks, and then we had this little cheap family meeting. And he said that same pitch that I'm stealing from the babies because I
Man,
didn't
fuck
turn
that.
in all my money.
Fuck that.
And then so he said if we was in Philly, because we did it like this in New York, if we was in Philly, we beat your ass and take the
Yo,
money. That's what he was saying. Hold on. And then because I knew, I said, because of the brother, it was the two brothers that was in, they was like, I'm not for this, Ark. I ain't trying to be a part of this, but I ain't gonna let them put me out. So we gotta do what we gotta do. So what happened? So he said, since we're not gonna beat you up, we're gonna beat you down. We're going to do a search, and if we find the money on you, then we're going to have to give you a therapeutic back rub.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck that is. So I figured, let me go ahead and so I took the I took the money because I think I had like $80 or something. I just rolled that joint up behind my hand while I was in there talking, and then when I put my head down, I stuck the money in my mouth, and I put the joint underneath my tongue. So when the band came to do the search, I was like, "Fuck it, go ahead, do the search." So they pat me down, all this stuff, put me down to like to my shorts because you couldn't get butt naked in there because you'd be starting a new race. The whole Canaanite thing.
Yeah.
All right, but anyway, so they didn't find anything, and it was squashed at that point. But man, when I found out when they did that. That's when I called dude up in Baltimore and told him, y'all got a spot up there. I'm trying to transfer. So you got any skills? Like, yeah, I do the carpentry work. Oh yeah, come on up. And that was in my other girl and her sister were living up there. So we had I took the remainder of that money, took a Greyhound the next day.
Fucking Greyhound.
Rolled out. I said, man, fuck Keita. I just rolled out.
Yo.
Right after Fudger.
Yeah, about the Yahweh Ben Yahweh thing. I'm glad you bring that up. Now again, I wanna stress with all the drama I went through with Key Dog, we did reconcile at the first Savior's Day on the land. And then Key Dog actually came down. He actually stayed at my house down here. And I know as he got older, I don't know where him and his wife are now. I don't even know if they're still part of the organization. I learned a lot from Kedar too, even though some fucked up shit went on, but we went at it. We went through it. Not just with me. At that time, it was Brother Shire, who I love to death, who I haven't talked to in a while. Another brother named Kush, another brother named Talib. And at that time when the Miami community was being formed, that's how I got to Miami, because my father had moved down here with my mother, who was diagnosed with terminal multiple sclerosis. So I had asked York if I could come down here so I could be close to my mother, because she was about maybe 45 minutes to an hour away from the community in Miami. But when we came down, remember the Yahweh thing at that time, 1990, it was somewhere around there going into 91. And the Yahweh, remember Yahweh was going through all that legal stuff, the murder trials, and there was a lot of crazy shit going on down here. We would literally walk around, get pelted. They would throw bottles at us, confusing us for Yahwehs. Literally, we would just be walking down the street. A car would come flying by, and we get 40s were getting thrown at us, bottles, all types of shit.
Dude, they did it to us.
Yeah, they thought we were Yahweh ben Yahwehs.
Yeah.
And then to attest to Brother Kush, part of what Chuck is saying, and I know a lot of brothers can attest to this. If you did something like violate protocol, like Kush fell asleep on guard that one night, and you all had to participate in that ass whooping, okay? And if you didn't, you'd get your ass whooped. So I remember, and man, I'll be honest with you, I participated in some of them ass whoopings because Chuck hit something on the head. If you didn't, you were afraid of being kicked out. Like you'd have to leave because it was when he's talking about Mattoon, we had something called the Swords of Islam, where it was a very militant environment. Yes, it was kind of a play off of the Fruits of Islam or the Nation of Islam. Yes, where we marched, we had what we call PT, physical training, all that stuff happened. It was almost like supposed to be the military of the Ansarul law community, quote unquote. Those same brothers, we would go out at nighttime. If you were bootlegging books in New York and we caught your table, we would flip your table and take all your shit. That's what we did. Some nights we would just go out looking for tables to flip because at that time, there was a lot of people who didn't live in the community, but wore jolly beers and would set up in spots and they would photocopy, photostat the books. That was a no-no.
Yeah, we had a bunch of them that was doing that. Matter of fact, we had they had a dude we used to call
Where'd
Redbeard.
dots go?
Huh?
Dots must have fell off. I was going to ask you something, but I don't keep going.
No, we had to do that in Redbeard because he would sell go-go tapes too and make money off of it. Because they put him out because something similar to that, where he kept falling asleep on guard, or he had like a bladder problem. He used to always have to.
Yeah, that was no.
And sometimes nobody wanted to hold him down because he's from London, so he had that accent, and a lot of people they wasn't feeling because he was like, I guess, nerd or whatever. So they really didn't give him that kind of respect like he gave any other brother. If somebody from the streets, you gave him a different level of respect than somebody from another country or something like that. So he would sometimes pee on himself in a jar of beer.
Man, he a better man than me, boy.
Yeah, because he said, I could, no one would help me down, man. No one could hold me down. So I had no choice,
But
like
keep in mind, Chuck, in regards to that, and everybody's got to understand, smaller communities, it was rough. Like in Brooklyn, when you had enough of brothers to rotate guard, it wasn't as bad. But in Miami, where there was 4 to 6 of us, I literally had nights where we would pedal all day. Mm-hmm. You'd come in, eat, and then you go right to guard. And then if you was on that late shift, the guy that was on guard when Fudger was coming in, he was responsible for waking everybody up in the bed. Mm-hmm. So you would have to wake everybody up for Fudger. Yep. There was times where I did a late night guard shift, woke everybody up for Fudger prayer. And then some days right after that, we used to have Keto had this big ass station wagon. If it was laundry day right after Fudger, I'd have to get in the car and drive the women to the laundromat and stay at the laundromat with them, obviously, until they were done, come back. And then as soon as I come back, I'd have to get dressed and we out on the road all day, walking around, pedaling, tableek, and et cetera. That's how those small communities were in areas like down south. It's not like New York. New York, we had it outside of wrestling with the elements all year round. I mean, making Fudger. I mean, that's how fucking crazy we were. We take our salat rug on back of our table in the middle of the winter, and we're making salat outside.
Just in the snow.
It was a little different in New York because you were able to have more people around. It was a little easier to maneuver. I was fortunate because one of my main peddling spots in New York was Delancey and Essex Street on the Lower East Side. And there used to be a gym discount store right where I used to pedal in front of, which is like a pharmacy discount store. And it was run by Dominicans. And I became good friends with this one dude, Pino. And Pino was a dope dealer. He was selling heroin all around there. But they respected us. Even the drug boys respected us. They would buy books from us. They would get oils from us, incense. So they would look out for us. They would watch the table if we had to step off to get something to eat. I mean, literally, this dude, Pino, who was a major heroin dealer, he would watch my table so I could go get something to eat for 10 minutes, or if I had to go make prayer. And they had the utmost respect for us. They wouldn't do anything around us. They looked out for us. They would buy us food, all types of shit. I developed a relationship with the gem discount store. They used to let me leave my table there and my products. I didn't have to carry them on the train and the bus no more. I would just leave them there and just take my bag whenever I wanted, and travel.
We had that kind of rapport with some of the people on downtown. Like we had back, well, it was store Macy's on the corner, and so it was me, this brother Musa Weir, who used to be like an Ansar. He had like a t-shirt. He had left the community and started his own t-shirt company. and we was real tight, and he would also sell go-go tapes because he had a couple of nephews, Mo and Wood, and they was dealing their drugs under the table, and but we had that whole
Lost you, Chuck. I don't know if you can hear.
block locked down.
There you go. Yeah, you're
Okay,
good.
yeah, we had that block on the lockdown where his two nephews, Mo and would be selling the whole drug thing down there. And whenever somebody would come up, like one morning we would come in, somebody would be selling, they trying to sell, like I would be selling incense and oils. And them would sell it too, but I got priority of it because they were still selling go-go tapes, t-shirts. And so somebody set up next to us and they just go up there. I didn't have anything. They just go over there and start throwing tables in the street, beating up people, fighting cops, the whole thing. And then that rapport we had with people, like the dude who was running the Popeyes, because we was set up in front of the Popeyes downtown in DC. And so the dude would let us put our stuff.
Froze again, Chuck. Your audio went out.
His signal went bad.
Okay, I don't know if you can hear. Yeah, I know we're storytelling now because I guess there's nothing to really talk about, but this is the type of stuff that went on. Also, another thing, I don't know if everybody's
Let me
familiar.
put my stuff in his.
There you go. You're back.
Basement down.
We lost you, Chuck. So you went out.
I don't know
about
where that came from, but to make a long story short, we had that connection, and we had that whole block at one time locked down. Whether we had dealers, we had all kinds of criminals on that block, but we had it. And in spite of all of that, hotel would come down and drop off the new books, and I put them on the table, and we try to make that little hustle down there. But in the midst of the go-go music playing right next to me, we had it locked down. So it was gold. It was digital gold. Said the Junkyard Band. Junkyard Band. NEG. Chuck, of course. Northeast Groovers. Backyard Band. All of them. We had everybody. We were selling everything. I mean, I didn't really push the go-go stuff because it was, I wasn't even trying to go that route because my whole thing, I was trying to argue with people or debate people all day long at my table, and then try to sell books in between that. So that was part of my shortcoming was I spent much time in doctrine, trying to teach people and all that stuff.
And what people may not know is if you're familiar with the rapper Diamond D and the Gun Runners crew, some of them brothers were Ansars. When I was in the Spring Valley community, brother named Rajid, and the brother that I mentioned last time, Yassar, that you see in the Peach Fuzz KMD video, who says, "Don't talk to the girls." That's the brother that him and Bashar gave me my shahada. He was part of the Gun Runners crew. He got shot in the leg, actually. You see him now walking around. He's got a permanent limp. There was brothers that were part of that Gun Runners crew that were running guns up and down the East Coast. And believe me, I saw that shit in the Spring Valley tab. They was doing some shit in there. And again, I'm not saying that we can't attribute that to York because I remember when that was going on, York did get wind of it. And I remember he called us up there and we had to put a stop to that. He didn't want that stuff going on. But you got to understand, when people were placed in the mentality to do whatever they got to do to make money, that's what a human being does. When it's survival, person going to do whatever they got to do to survive. And, you take something from I know any man will attest to this. You take everything from them. Their natural response is to retaliate and survive.
Right.
And that's important. That's what we did. You understand what I'm saying? That's just what we did.
Ezekiel sent me some photos he took of the letter that York had. Oh, let me pull this up. He said this is the first letter. I will say.
What is this? What is this?
This is one of the letters that York sent Ezekiel.
Oh, okay.
Jones County Law Enforcement Center, Gray, Georgia.
Oh yeah, yep. Yep. Jones County. Yep. Yeah, he was sending me letters from there at that same time. He had, yep, those same little pilly, those funny illustrations. Yep. My beloved son.
Yeah, he always uses that language.
Yeah, I feel man, his penmanship was really jacked up. I'm never busy for one of my children. Keep up that prayer to Anu and his son Enki. I did.
Which by the way, now in the doctrine, they are blood eating reptilians.
Ain't that something?
And I just don't understand that when you look on the first Taful rug, not Ashutat rug, we were bowing down and prostrating with a new in Nuwapic right at the top. So I posed that question, but the only answer you'll get to that is that was a school we were in at that time. But so you're still admitting that obviously York was feeding us to these bloodthirsty beings, but I guess at the time that didn't matter because of the school we were in. So that didn't change the fact that they were still bloodthirsty, devouring beings, because that's what they're presented as now. The Anunnaki, oh no, those are they're coming back to eat you. I've heard them say just as a few years ago. But at one point, remember, we in right knowledge, the school of right knowledge was all about the Sumerian deities, Enki and Leo, Anu, all Tammuz. That was the whole narrative when the Holy Tablets came out. But see, that's the other convenient thing they'll use in the doctrine. When you try to bring up a contradiction or inconsistency, oh, that was that school. That was when we were in that school.
Garbage.
But it doesn't change the fact. But were those beings still blood devouring, eating beings? So they weren't when we were being taught at that time, and then it just changed. I don't understand how that works. But yeah.
Okay, so what I get from this is that so y'all say this is the basic format for the letters he was sending out. So basically he was just trying to keep support while he was in by telling people he's gonna get out soon and they get to meet him face to face.
The same thing they're doing now. Trying to keep hope alive. They're still having Nuwapians active right now. They're pushing this story. He's coming out. He's coming out. Every year since 2004, they said it. They got you to this point where it's imminent. He's almost coming out. They got this. He just got to sell just a little bit more money. He's on his way out. By December, by Christmas, he'll be out. They're still doing it. And these dummies are still following it.
The first Nuwapo balls after the first several years York was incarcerated, the big hustle would be, oh, there's going to be a special surprise, a special guest at the ball. They would try to create this illusion that York was going to be there to boost up the ticket sales. The last ball, the one we had here in Miami, that we did in Orlando in Florida in 2009, I was one of the key people that had to put that together. And by the way, the day I showed up, they still didn't make the final payment on the place. And I had to hustle up the money to pay for that. But that's a whole nother fucking story. But these were the games that they would play. You know, this ball's going to be special this year. Yeah, he's getting out. Yeah, he's going to be at the Nuwapo ball. That shit ain't happening.
I will see you at the moon in a dream. Look for me.
Yeah, all that spooky shit. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but Nah.
Look, but you got to keep this in mind. You got to put yourself. This is why I'm saying we got to have intelligent conversation. You got to place yourself in York's mind and where he's at and what he's dealing with. You got to understand it. That's why you're seeing the tone and the language of the letters like that. And he wrote like that to everybody. My beloved son, my beloved daughter. So exactly. Oh, Ezekiel, let me see that. I think I see the avatar. I can't remember what your name. I see the face. I know who you are now. I know who you are. So yeah, you know what time it is, brother. You know what time it is. But what I was saying was, you have to put yourself in a place where you're dealing with a 135-year sentence. Anything. Any glimmer of hope, you got to do something to alter that, what you're dealing with. I mean, it's just human nature. That's what we have to understand. So this has explained why he would write in these tones. Everybody was his special son and daughter. Everybody was his beloved, and and do this for that. And my son, I appreciate this and that. blah, blah, blah. But one thing we had to understand, though, what I started to see right before I left was some stuff I spoke before. There was the manipulating of people. When one person was in a visit to see him, he would say one thing, and then when another person was there, he would say something else, and vice versa. He might say something derogative about that person.
Mm-hmm.
And all that is behavior of, long story short, somebody who was desperate, and that's normal. I'm not saying it justifies it, because some of the shit was a little crazy, but if you were in that position, shit.
Like this right here. God himself shall be with them and be their God when the great mothership return.
Mm-hmm.
The Bureau may call it, and it comes from Orion's star system. Lord. So
Yeah.
he's saying the Bureau is supposed to be the bride of Christ.
Listen, all of that stuff there, if you look at any school we've been in, even the school that they're in now, the narrative never changes. And I mentioned this a while back in some shows from a couple years back. When we were Ansars, it was still 144,000, Savior coming. And then obviously York was preparing the way for the Savior. He was Al-Kidder, he was Melchizedek, etc. No different when we were in the school of Judaism or Hebrewism, right? He was Rabboni Yeshua, right? Another, again, form. Savior, there was a scripture at the time, which was the Torah. When we were Muslims, it was the Quran. Savior coming back. We left that. We go into right knowledge. Now he is Merduk. And now the Holy Tablet is the book. That's the book that we have to follow, and he is the Savior. He always placed himself as the highest deity. Then it was the Black Book, the Sacred Records of Atum Re. He went from that. Now he is Nefer Nefertiti Atum Re, the highest deity in ancient Egypt. The new scripture is now the Sacred Records of Atum Re. And then now it's no different. Now he's back to being Baba Yanun or whatever they're calling him. And now the actual facts and whatever books. And I saw some advertisement for the Proverbs of Yanun, the 33 commandments of Yanun, the commandments. Oh. I'm saying this to all say, how can you say you're not religious by looking at these letters? The narrative never changes. Don't matter what school they claim they're in or not. It's always York is the divine messenger, savior figure. There's a scripture or a book they all must follow and stay in line with. As long as you follow the protocols. My question to everybody, how does that differ from a Christian following biblical laws, going to church, observing all the holidays, observing all the religious rites and customs? How does the Nuwapian doctrine differ from religion? Because I always hear we're not religious, but all I'm seeing is religious overtones and religious actions up and down in the doctrine. So now it's back to being, Yanun is not a new thing, people, if you ain't been around. That's very old. So what I'm saying that to say is it's what I've noticed over the years, and I started to notice that right before he got incarcerated, when we went into this Holy Seed Baptist Synagogue stuff, it was like it's always something that's just rehashed. It's just recycled and just presented in a slightly different way. That's it. That's the point that I'm trying to get at. And
what did y'all do when y'all got hurt?
As far as what? Living in the community?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I've almost been shot out peddling. Miami was a rough school for me. I'm not going to lie, because it was a different environment. And shout out to Brother Shire, who actually saved my life. We went through it all. If we got hurt, we toughed it out. We got cut, injured. You worked through that stuff, man. If you injured your knees, your legs, your feet, you worked through it. If you got sick, we would nurse ourselves. I mean, we didn't really get sick. Just when you're young and you're strong, and you might get little colds here and there, but that was just shit we worked through as far as illnesses. Outside of just the regular normal shit, seasonal stuff, we kind of just tended to that with tea and maybe herbs and natural stuff, fasting. We just worked through that because most of us, now some elders, it was a little different. I could recall some elders who couldn't go out peddling because they had existing conditions. There were some brothers, they would stay in the tab or outside, posted on guard all the time, or somewhere in the vicinity. that existed in New York and other tabs. They just, because they did have existing medical
Yeah.
conditions, so they didn't have the physical capacity to go out peddling all day. So we just dealt with it. Yeah.
Chuck, I just now realized that you put York head on Batman body. I went to go get your channel link, and I'm like, what?
Sorry.
Hey, ain't nothing to be
It's a little
sorry
comedy.
about.
It's a little comedy.
I found it tickled me.
It was a video. I mean, it was a
I
bat.
know, it was
This video about the bat being.
I didn't notice when you
Hey,
first put it because I saw it somewhere else in the complaint. I didn't get to see the thumbnail.
What was it? The bat and the rat mixed
Yeah,
and produced the
I
bat.
had read the article.
So I mean, it was appropriate. It was relative.
Well, you know where that comes from, right? Because that's if you're familiar with the supreme lessons of the Nation of Islam, that's where that comes from.
Yeah, that was like, because I know the dog, cat, and the rat, and then
Right,
he,
and
he
that's
switched
also
that up, and,
right.
Yeah, and then he flipped it, and now he's come up with that idea. That
It's
was
in
the
the
dog
120,
picture.
the Nation of Gods and Earth. It's in the 120 also.
Oh goodness! Yeah, Mookie told me it kind of flipped his mind when he saw Jesus on the arm.
Oh yeah. That was the Egyptian Church of Karast, or Christ, and the basis of that was the word Karast, mean anointed. And York basically told us that the oil that would emit from the hippopotamus deity was an anointing oil that they would use in ancient Egypt. Yeah. And right. Well, deity was called Tawarat, which was supposedly where the word Torah came from, and that there was this crocodile deity that the Hyksos were housing in their temple, and that it would make these wailing sounds late at night, and it was driving the ancient inhabitants of the land crazy. And then Thutmose, the first of ancient Egypt, who was supposed to be the real Moses, that's the story of the Israelites being, let out of bondage in Egypt. It was actually the story of the Hyksos being driven out in the 430-year bondage. I'm just telling you, that's what we were taught. But that's where that whole school comes from. But see, you gotta understand, York was he was good with advertising. He was a master salesman, so that appealed to a lot of people, because you could have the Jesus thing, but yet trim it up with a little Egyptian.
He relied heavily on Gerald Massey in that book that he where all he got like harass stuff. Yeah.
Well,
I have an article on that too. So
actually, there's a brother, Muhammad Gaddawa, who he's got a book called The Egyptian Divinities on One, and if you go back and read his stuff, he drops a lot of that stuff too. So there was a lot of people out there talking about that, and I think at that time. So you got to understand, it was always about what can I come up with to keep the people engaged. You understand what I'm saying? And you have to captivate the people. I remember him saying this, and this I can't blame him for it, because I'd probably do the same thing. I remember we were having a conversation, a group of us brothers at the house in Mansfield Court, and I can't remember who it was, but one of the brothers had asked him, why do you keep putting books out on Jesus? And this was his response. If you could write a book and they'd pay $50 for it, $40, $30, wouldn't you do it? And think about that. Most of the people, York always focused, and still does to this day, the teachings are geared in some shape, form, or fashion of deconstructing, and pay attention now, deconstructing Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, but at the same token, using it. Think about that for a minute. Now, I know they'll say we have to dissect the Bible, we have to tear it apart, because that's the spell that's been put on our people. We'll stop using it all the time. You understand? Because if you keep it alive by constantly beating up this narrative, because you can't at one hand say the Bible and religion is this, but everything that you're doing in the doctrine is themed biblical and Quranic, and you're using biblical quotes sometimes to explain things. You can't do that. You can't quote a biblical passage and then turn around and bash that same biblical passage or narrative. That just doesn't make sense. But that's what we did. We didn't look at it like that, but that's what we did. You understand? We had to. But outside of that, I always pose this question, and again, this is just facts. There's another thing people will say, oh, everybody talks this smack now about the doctrine, but if York was out, nobody would be questioning him and he'd tear them all apart. I'm going to tell you why that's untrue. Name me one place outside of Tamaray in Eatonton, Georgia, outside of Brooklyn, New York, or any of the satellite communities that York taught openly to the public and made himself available to be scrutinized by the public. He didn't do it. Never did. He always did it in his environment. There was always security there. There was control. Matter of fact, Who Are the Real Shriners tape, some of the things we used to do in the Saturday night classes, that's me asking the first question on that tape. And I was told to ask that question by York. So sometimes we would be put in the crowd to spark the conversation. You understand? And if you came up to Tamaray, and many people witnessed this, and you asked questions,
Yeah.
York would shift the narrative if he didn't like it, and security would be on you like flies on dog shit.
Yeah.
So I'm saying you show me one place, like nowadays, I think York would have more problems with the internet. And if he came in some of these main forums, he'd get torn apart because he wouldn't be addressed the way he was addressed back then, outside of being in the confines of your own environment. Like I say, show me one place, because they always say, like, when he was around, he answered everything. And he, like if he was open worldwide everywhere and made himself accessible to anything and anybody. Okay, that's not true. York only taught openly in the public in confined environments. Again, Eatonton, Georgia on Tamaray, the Hall of Knowledge in Brooklyn, New York. I know he traveled to Philly, Trinidad, some of the satellite communities. I want somebody to show me on a regular basis, name me places where York opened himself up to other people outside of Ansars. Yes, when people came up to Tamaray, there were people that came up as visitors, but it was still an environment that we controlled. We controlled the environment. So he never ever put himself out there like you're hearing. He only made himself accessible to his mainstream community. Now, I asked this question. Let's be factual, and this is just with all due respect. You think if York was on YouTube, and now with all these movements and the access we have to information and how the internet has grown since he's been incarcerated, do you think it would be as simple and easy for York now? Some people would say, yes, he's the master teacher. Hell no, it wouldn't.
No way.
There would be a lot of people plugging the holes in the doctrine. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you got to look, when you make a statement like that, you have to be careful. You understand? I think he would have a hard time based on what's going on out here. Because now everybody can get information in real time. Yep. You can Google stuff, PDF files, download information, do research. So a lot of the stuff, see, this was the game too. We were always told, don't believe me, check it out. Majority of people never really checked it out because that was, York would say that, but majority of people never really checked it out. But what started to happen is some people started to check it out and it just didn't add up. You understand?
Yeah.
It's just the way it was. But I think he would have a very complicated time trying to defend this doctrine amongst a lot of these conscious movements, whether you agree with him or not. But he would have a hard time. If he put himself accessible really in this day and time in 2021, open to the public, you cannot sit here and try to sell me that it would be a walk in the park because it wouldn't. He'd have a very difficult time.
Okay. So we can go ahead and close this out. I thank both of y'all for coming.
Yeah.
And Universal as well. Even if he couldn't connect this time.
Okay.
But what we'll do.
You need to take care of that. You need to take care of that cough, sis.
I'm about to choke myself.
She's talking all night.
Yeah.
Now, it was a good show. I think this is a good documentation of the history from the inside of the organization. There's so many stories you can pull up. Man, that's just because as he's talking, I'm remembering this. I haven't thought about that in years.
Sure.
Oh man, even just that class you was when you had asked that first question, and you hear Jonathan Big Tex ask the question about the shrine, And I was right there when we was going over the question.
Another
Because we
good
got it
brother,
from the
by the
author.
way. I'm glad you bring him up. Love that brother, man. I had a great
Yeah,
relationship with Big
yeah,
Tex. I
me
wish I
too.
could talk to him, man.
Yeah, he was a
Go
good
ahead. I'm
guy.
sorry.
Yeah, but I remember when the office sent that question over to ask. So when you go down there, ask that question, and all this stuff was scripted.
Hmm. Yeah, look, what don't kill you makes you stronger. That's how you got to look at it. What don't kill you makes you stronger, brother.
Yep. We
All
gonna
right.
close it up for the night.
All
As
right.
always, we will roll it back over for an after party. But for
Hey,
now,
look, I
uh,
might since I go to work, I'll see if I can pop in because I have plenty of time. I got all night. See if I can come
all
on out.
right. Okay, Chuck.
Thanks,
Yeah, I'll
Mike.
see. I don't know if I could get by. If not, I'll see you guys whenever that next time is meant to be. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
man.
All right.
And
Great,
thank
Mike.
you for coming.
Yep. Yep.
We're gonna close this one up and we'll be out in a couple. We'll be back up in like a minute or two. So you might as well just stay here and refresh the page and it'll come up. Tuesday live over in the right hand corner in the recommended. So this is Trip C's Treehouse where we keep